Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where OP's ex-wife demands his record collection. Am I the jerk for refusing to split my late aunt's vintage record collection with my soon-to-be ex-wife? My soon-to-be ex-wife and I are in the midst of divorce proceedings. We live together, we have no kids, pets, or property. All of our stuff has been claimed by the rightful owner. The vintage record collection in question is the only point of contention. Now, I'll admit that my family's mistreatment of my soon-to-be ex and me being conflict avoidant and not advocating for her like I should have is one of the main factors behind our divorce. I'm definitely the jerk for that, and I take full responsibility. I know she deserves better. That's why we're no longer together. My late aunt left me her vintage record collection. My soon-to-be ex admired this collection even while my aunt, who was among one of her worst tormentors, was still alive. Soon-to-be ex has asked me many times if I would be willing to part with a few pieces from the record collection to give to her, which I'm not. I refuse to do this because it feels disrespectful to my aunt's memory. Even if her mistreatment of my wife at the time was uncalled for, why should someone she didn't like get to enjoy her belongings? But soon-to-be ex feels like having the records from the collection that she really wants settles the score once and for all. So Reddit, am I the jerk for not giving soon-to-be ex some of the records from my late aunt's vintage record collection? Not the jerk. It's a personal inheritance, not marital assets. Not the jerk. It's your inheritance from your aunt. Your soon-to-be ex has no claim, legal, ethical, moral, or otherwise, on it. I'm going against the grain to say that no jerks here. I mean, you were the jerk for not defending your wife with your family, so yay, divorce. I understand where soon-to-be ex is coming from though. I imagine it must have been very painful for her not to have her husband support her against a family that mistreated her. Yes, she may just want the records, but she probably also wants a tangible acknowledgement of the crap that she had to go through while being with you. While you may not be the jerk, not showing any generosity with these records may be a reminder for her as to why she's better off now. I know it's from your aunt and it would be disrespectful to her memory, but would it really? The collection is yours now, and at the end of the day, you get to choose what to do with it. Why not be a bit generous to someone you loved and hurt? You're the jerk. You have no legal obligation to share, but you allowed your family to mistreat her, and you decide to further enable and perpetuate that mistreatment rather than part with a few records as a way of taking ownership of your failure in that area. Be the man the next woman will want to marry, because you ain't it right now. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for not sharing the records or not? Please let us know. Am I wrong for charging people to talk to me on the phone and profiting off the male loneliness epidemic? I'm a little broke right now. I'm currently going to school part-time and working a full-time job. It's rough out here. I needed a little more income, but I didn't want to do Uber, DoorDash, etc. Safety, plus my car needs to be fixed up. And I already sell my plasma as often as I can. I came up with putting out an ad for phone conversations. I basically get a burner phone to talk to people about anything they want, and I charge for it. I don't talk about or refer to anything that's not safe for work. It's my main rule, and I strictly enforce it. You can imagine how many people I've had to block. Basically, I charge $12 per 15 minutes to talk to me. My customer base is almost entirely men. I wasn't sure if I would actually make much profit on this, but I was surprised at the amount of men willing to pay for a completely safe-for-work conversation with an unknown woman. Like I said, I will talk to them about anything they want. A lot of them just want to talk about their day, what they did at work today, or why their one coworker really made them mad at lunch. They vent to me about their wives or ex-wives. They explain their favorite TV shows and why they like them. They tell me what happened at their latest Dungeons & Dragons session. Sometimes it's really mundane, and sometimes it's honestly really sad. They've said things to me, and they've told me that they haven't told anyone before. I don't know exactly why. I think they just don't open up to anyone in their lives and find it easier to talk to a feminine figure that's a stranger. Frequently, I don't even talk much, I just listen. And if they ask, I give advice the best I can. But for a lot of it, I'm out of my depth, and I make sure that they know that. It's kind of like calling a friend to talk or vent. But yes, I get paid for my time. My roommate heard me on the phone with a guy the other day who was telling me about a promotion he was working towards. I was telling him, good job, he was working hard, and I was sure he was gonna get it, etc. When I got off the phone, my roommate asked who I was talking to, and I explained all of this to him. He got really upset at me and told me I was taking advantage of lonely, isolated men. He said I was profiting off the male loneliness epidemic. Edit. He also called it extremely unethical, which I think is ridiculous. I'm not targeting them. I'm not even exclusively advertising to men. I talk to women as well, but I don't get nearly as many calls from women as I do men. I talk to anyone who pays. I'm not heartless. I'll give discounts to really sad callers, and if they're talking to me about something sensitive and I don't have another call scheduled, I'll let it go on a little overtime without charging. But I see it as me putting out a service and they are willingly paying for it. I didn't start this because of the male loneliness epidemic, and I'm not targeting men who are affected by it. I'm not targeting anyone. Am I wrong? Edit. I'm not a therapist. I have no training, none at all. I'm flattered y'all think that I'm good at it. I'm actually studying for project management and procurement. I'm mostly an engaging soundboard. I listen to what they tell me and I ask questions and engage with them. Like if they're telling me about Dungeons and Dragons, I'll ask about their character's backstory or when to make a history check or something, even though I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for years. They love to explain things they're interested in. You're helping them, not harming them. Your roommate needs to get off his high horse and realize that they're grown men who can choose how to spend their own money. Are therapists profiting off of the male loneliness epidemic too? You offer a service and they pay you. It seems totally fine to me. You sound like a therapist or a coach. You could label it as an encouragement coach. I think this is an awesome service. Not at all. Your time is valuable. Roommate is wrong on all of his points. Also, you should probably increase your rate. My husband's affair daughter was dropped off at our house 2 weeks ago. I'm 34, female. My life is falling apart and it's all thanks to my husband. We had a perfect life. Both of us worked in jobs that we loved. We have a beautiful daughter who's 10 and a healthy son who's 5. When I was pregnant with our son, we both almost passed due to complications. So before the birth and even afterwards, I didn't feel like hooking up with my husband. Why would I? I almost didn't make it, and my body was in pain for months afterwards, even with strong medication. I thought my husband understood. I thought that he understood my pain, but apparently he was just getting it from somewhere else. A few months ago, we were visited by the authorities. As it turns out, some woman I've never met before passed in a car accident, leaving behind her daughter, and my husband's name was on the girl's birth certificate, and he was named in the woman's will as the father. I thought it was a mistake at first, until my husband told me the truth. As it turns out, while I was suffering my pregnancy and the after effects of almost not making it, my husband would go to this woman he knew at work and would cheat on me with her. He said this as if he was doing me a favor. Well, the authorities explained to us my husband is her closest living relative that can care for her. The woman's family apparently wanted nothing to do with the poor girl. When she asked us if we wanted to take her in, I said yes. Yes, I know this might be the true cause of all my issues, but my husband pawned that poor girl off to live with her single mother for 5 years. He doesn't get to pawn her away when she needs help. She's his responsibility and now is ours. I told him I'll help take care of the necessary visits for wellness checkups and help with whatever else we have to do. All he had to do was explain everything to our kids. The fact I'm saying this now tells you what he did. Yes, nothing. We had to clean out a room and buy new furniture and even looked for some toys. Our kids go to a private school, so I picked up some more work hours in order to be able to afford her tuition. I was the one who had to tell our extended families the big change because he didn't want to. I did almost all of the heavy lifting. So color me shocked when his daughter finally joins our family 2 weeks ago and the first words out of our kids' mouths were, "Who's that?" Yes, I was the one who had to tell our kids' school, extended families, family doctors, and my workplace about my husband's affair and subsequent addition to our family. But he couldn't tell our kids because he was too ashamed to face them. So guess who was the one who had to explain that they have a sister now, as I'm trying to settle the poor girl into her new home and room. And shocker, our kids didn't take the news well as it was happening right in front of them. My daughter was screaming and crying, which caused my son and the other girl to cry. A situation that could have been avoided if my husband just did the one thing I asked of him and explained everything to them much sooner. It's been 2 weeks of her living with us and the situation has not improved. My husband has not picked up the slack that comes with having a new addition to the family, so we're struggling right now to make ends meet. I feel embarrassed bringing all 3 kids around for appointments and groceries because the little girl is very much obviously not mine, and I can tell people are judging our family. My daughter is much moodier and less happy and refuses to even acknowledge our newest addition to the family. Our son doesn't really understand what's going on, and it's causing even him to lash out. And I don't even know how to help this poor girl, because I know that if I feel like my life is falling apart, she must feel even worse. I suggested family therapy for our kids, even just marriage therapy, so we can hopefully move past this and work together as a unit for all of the kids. He's refused everything, saying that he knows he'll be lectured by everyone when all he was doing was trying to help me. I just don't know how to fix this. I don't want to divorce him because I just know that will make it worse for the kids, but that's the only option my family is telling me. Meanwhile, his family is begging me to make this work and to just look past it. Tell his family that your cowardly jerk husband is avoiding everything. He thinks that if he buries his idiotic head into the dirt, everything will resolve itself. Sadly, things are being resolved because he has you. You step up to the plate and handled everything. This allowed him to pass on his responsibilities to you. Tell him choices have consequences, and now he's afraid to get blamed for his choices. If he makes the choice to avoid his duty as a father and a husband, then there will be further consequences. I asked my husband for a divorce, and now he's been the perfect husband in an attempt to get me to change my mind. My husband, 39 male, and I, 34 female, have been together for over 13 years, married for almost 9. We have 2 kids together who are under the age of 4. We've had many significant issues throughout the entirety of our relationship, which we have discussed at length in the past, and my concerns were always pacified with minimal effort for a brief time. Most of the current, main issues began about 4 years ago when I was pregnant with our son. Despite going through fertility treatments to conceive, he was fairly absent during the pregnancy, and even worse once our son was born. I was essentially a single parent, and this created a lot of resentment. This also coincided with lockdown, and my previously introverted husband became a hermit even after lockdown restrictions lifted and we both felt safe going out again. Cut to the end of 2022. Despite our continued struggles, we conceived our daughter through fertility treatments. I was hospitalized at 18 weeks and ended up on bed rest and pelvic rest for the duration of my pregnancy. Even while under these restrictions, I was still the main caregiver for our son, and he would constantly complain when he had to do any of the tasks I would typically do for our son: bath, prepare meals, etc. When I was about 7 months pregnant, my car ended up dying and I needed a new battery since I was stranded at the house without a safe car while he was at work. I continually asked him to get one that I would pay for. I just couldn't lift it in and out of a shopping cart, but he never did it. Our friend found out I needed this and he actually went out, bought the battery, and installed it for me the next day. When I gave birth, my husband was completely uninterested and even complained about how hard I squeezed his hand even though I had to give birth unmedicated. Hours after our daughter was born, instead of spending time with our new daughter, he was returning a call to the group sales associate for the local Major League Baseball team to coordinate buying tickets for the next month. In December of 2023, we had a very significant fight and I finally suggested couples counseling. He refused. When I asked why, he said that he wouldn't do it because the therapists tend to favor the woman. When I suggested we find a male therapist or one he chooses, he still refused and did not provide any other alternative to counseling or therapy. He said he wanted to fix our relationship for the kids, but I told him I would never stay together for the kids, just my belief that it makes everyone miserable. We had this same conversation every month through February of 2024, with him continually refusing counseling and actually distancing himself more from not only me, but also the kids. It finally came to a head last week when I told him I've decided on a divorce. I didn't ask for one because I knew what I wanted and that I wouldn't change my mind. The conversation went from him gaslighting me to blaming me to bargaining for more time until he finally seemed to accept the fact it was over between us. I was very clear and I told him I would have love for him as the father of my kids, but I was no longer in love with him. We even had discussed how to amicably co-parent moving forward. The next day, he came to me with these commitments he was going to make to me to be a better husband and father. He even called my mom and told her all about how he was going to change and be better. It all felt extremely manipulative and disingenuous. Since then, he's been going above and beyond to be more engaged with the kids, be more supportive of me and how can he help me, etc. The only thing is, his campaign to win me back is having the opposite effect, because now I can see that he has been capable of this all along. He was choosing not to do it. He also told his parents I asked for a divorce, and they ambushed me in our home 5 minutes after I woke up the other day, drilling me on if I loved their son and was willing to do therapy. So how can I tell my husband that this is too little too late while still maintaining some semblance of peace for the kids? When I decided to leave, same story. There was complete change into the support I had been asking for. Household help, support, a true partnership. I was exhausted of trying alone for a long time by myself to make it work, and I was angry and offended that now he was changing. I had nothing left to give. I had bankrupted myself emotionally with all of my effort. I cared about him, but I loved me more. I no longer loved him. Although I felt bad, I was done and angry that he was rallying others to support him. It felt like another offense. I was being manipulated, and so are you. I can tell you that this effort quickly changed to attacks and contention once he realized I was not coming back. I'm projecting, but put on your seatbelt and prepare yourself for the ride. I just found out my boyfriend has lunch with my grandmother every Thursday afternoon. I've known and been best friends with my now boyfriend for almost 10 years. We started dating last year. I found out a couple of days ago that he has lunch with my grandmother every Thursday afternoon. His office is near her home. He stops by, picks her up, and takes her out for lunch. This apparently started a couple of years ago when we were still just friends, and she had asked him to help her hang curtains sometime. He stopped by, did some chores for her, and they just became friends. He doesn't let her pay. He insists on her choosing the restaurant. They talk about her shows, travel, her senior group, and his family. My parents knew about this. My sister knew about this. They assumed that I knew. I asked them to pretend we never had the conversation because I don't want it to change. I think that it's really sweet of him, and I love that he's built bonds with my family. I'm really fortunate to have someone like him. Okay, so why don't I know? I'm going to give my best guess here, and will stop responding to everyone asking this individually. We met while I was in college, and he was in grad school and became close friends pretty quickly. We came from the same general area and went to an out-of-state school. Our families met each other as a result of us knowing each other. Our mothers are close. My boyfriend is friends with my brothers. They sail together too. My boyfriend spent a fair amount of time in my father's workshop with my father and my brothers. They build things together for fun. I was in no way alarmed by this. This post was me sharing something positive that I appreciated. The majority of the responses to it seemed to indicate that I was successful in communicating that effectively. This is heartwarming. For what it's worth, I did not intend to trigger negativity posting about something that involves no negativity. Am I the jerk for wanting my girlfriend to share rent with me when she moves in? I, 31, male, met my girlfriend, Sarah, 26, female, a little over a year ago. She's currently unemployed and has moved back with her parents after she and her ex-fiancé broke up. I met her parents several times, although I thought it was a little early, but they seemed okay-ish. Last week, she told me that her parents have been wondering when I will make a move, meaning that I proposed to her. She said that she wanted to move in with me in my apartment. Now this may sound rude, but I had to ask her if she had found a job, but she said no, and has no intention to work anytime soon. I told her that moving in with me would mean more expenses, higher bills. Besides the rent that apparently I'm gonna have to handle all by myself, she took this as an offense and tried to argue that I don't value her and care more about the money. I explained that there was nothing wrong with her finding a job to share the rent with me since we were planning on getting engaged. She got upset and had her parents call me to invite me to their house for a talk. Her dad did the talking. He laid out all the reasons why I should not make a condition to let her move in with me. A, I'm a pediatrician. I make a ton of money. B, said that since I need help paying the rent, that I should not have rented a furnished apartment, which is more expensive, and not rent an apartment in an expensive area, which happens to be close to my workplace. And C, that since she's my soon-to-be wife, then there should be no difference if she pays or not. I was in shock. I didn't know what to say. I told him that this was not acceptable and that getting married means both sides help out, and that I wasn't willing to move to a cheaper apartment because that's a lot of time and effort. We argued back and forth. She went inside her room and refused to speak to me. Then her dad lashed out at me and said that I was being rude to them and inconsiderate, started bringing up the amount of money I make and how I was the one to complicate things. I left and she's been calling, saying that if I really love her, I should just agree with her dad. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. He's lucky he's getting these signs early on. You better run, boy, or you're gonna be dealing with these folks for a long time. Entitled mother-in-law demands we pay for my brother-in-law's lifestyle. Cast. We've got entitled mother-in-law. We've got entitled sister-in-law, brother-in-law's wife. We've got entitled brother-in-law. We've got my husband and me. Background. My husband comes from a poor background, as he could not attend college because he had to take up a job in our country's defense forces the moment he was 18. I, on the other hand, come from a middle-class family, as in I could attend college and even have a master's degree, but nothing super fancy. We were married, arranged marriage, when I was 24 and he was 25. Before our marriage, all my husband's salary went directly to his family. That means 7 years of income, people, a major part of which actually went to his brother-in-law, as he was too special to find a job, also could not keep one for longer than a year. When I came to my husband's house, my brother-in-law already had 4 kids with his wife pregnant with the 5th. My brother-in-law's credit was a mess, and he had taken multiple loans for funding his drinking holier-than-thou lifestyle, and my husband was a complete pushover with no spine of his own to speak up for himself. It took me 2 years and a toddler, blessed with a baby boy, to force him to grow a spine, as now he had a family of his own and needed to care for it. I had to make him understand that he can no longer send 90% of our income to his brother and force us on the brink of bankruptcy, as his brother cannot afford his own lifestyle. Slowly and slowly, my husband stopped sending them any money, as his parents had enough income to maintain themselves, and it was high time for his brother to get off his lazy butt and do something. Main story. Now, this is the main event that took place about 5 years ago, when my husband was 30, that forced us to go no contact with my in-laws and a major part of my husband's family. My brother-in-law now had 5 kids, blessed with all girls, was on the brink of bankruptcy, and had already used a major part of the inheritance that he was going to be passed down from his parents. This interaction took place on my first 2 nieces' wedding. They had a joint wedding and reception, as brother-in-law didn't have the money for 2 separate weddings. Entitled mom to my husband. You should start helping your brother again, as he's having a lot of troubles with funds lately. Husband. We're in a pretty tight spot ourselves, Mom, especially with Ellen. Me. Pregnant with a 2nd child. Entitled sister-in-law.
Well then, you should help your brother even more, as you know what it feels like to be with a pregnant woman. After all, we are also expecting.
Me. What? You're pregnant again? My actual words. Entitled mother-in-law. What do you mean, daughter-in-law? Aren't you happy? It can actually be a boy this time. Not everyone is as lucky as you who gets a boy on the first chance. Me, flabbergasted. What the heck are you talking about? I won't treat a daughter any differently than a son. Entitled sister-in-law.
Well, you can say that since you already have a son.
Husband. I don't care about entitled brother-in-law and entitled sister's lifestyle choices, and I can't share any more money with them, as I have my own family now, and we need to save to buy a house, start our son's college fund, etc. Entitled mother-in-law. You don't have any right to speak about your brother like that. He is trying to improve. A lie. He also has responsibilities. Me, laughing. Right, as if he knows what responsibilities are. Entitled sister-in-law.
You jerk! You dare speak about my husband like that?
Everyone was now looking at us. She gets into my face and actually takes a swing at me. Husband stopping her midair. You dare! She is pregnant, and even if she was not, how could you think that you could do this to her? Me, shocked plus angry. We're leaving now. I don't think we're welcome in this wedding anymore. Husband follows me without speaking anything else. We got many vile messages and even threats from his side of the family on how we spoiled our niece's marriage and how family always comes first. Fortunately, we had never given my in-laws our address, and even if they could get it somehow, no one would have the money for the plane ticket, as we live at the geographically opposite corner of the country at that time. Also, we've shifted twice since then and have blocked out most of his side of the family, leaving out some of his sensible cousins and uncles and aunts, etc., and informed everyone on my side of the family, plus our friends, to maintain absolutely no contact with them. Edit. Here are the answers to a lot of the common questions asked. 1. Yes, I'm from Asia. 2. The 6th kid was actually a boy. Thank God, or I don't know until how long they would have continued. 3. Also, thanks to all who are praising my English. I love a self-esteem boost. 4. I'm not child-free, but I am actually supporting that kind of lifestyle as a choice if it makes you happy. I love my kids and will do anything for them, but I also like the idea of having totally no responsibilities of another human being upon yourself, so I support it. Edit. Many people are asking about why there are some posts deleted or mentioning that I am a teenager, so here's the explanation. I get where you're coming from, so let me tell you that this is my son's account. I thought you guys would be able to tell that by the name. I'm not tech savvy enough to have my own account, neither am I really that much into media. He lets me use it to make posts and even read through some of my favorite subreddits, as he has also made a different personal account. I know it may sound confusing and weird, but that's it. He also uses this account so you can even find other posts stating that he's a teenager, etc. He's the one who's actually into writing those 2-sentence horror stories. He's the one who actually told me about the Karen and Entitled Family subreddits and stories, so I thought I should share my experience too. He's actually really happy due to the extra karma and awards that this post gained, as he himself has never earned so many likes and upvotes, so I think that should solve the confusion. Thanks again for all of the support and awards. You are all amazing people. Have you ever had in-laws that you just couldn't stand? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. My in-laws never liked me, and I still haven't found out why. Entitled brother tried to trick me into letting him live with me. This happened around Christmas. My grandmother had passed away the previous year, and my brother had been living with her. However, after being told before my grandmother passed that the house would be sold, he refused to move out, saying, "I'm working on it." Not sure what he was working on, but it didn't look like anything whenever we came by to give him food. He has a job, yet never seemed to buy food. He always calls me up demanding some of mine or demands it from my mother. Well, Christmas I was terribly ill. I had called out of work and wrote on Facebook that I didn't want to be bothered. The doctor said it was just a cold, but it was horrible. Whenever I breathed, I wheezed and rattled. I felt like I was in no fit state to do anything. However, my ever-loving family didn't accept sickness as a reason to skip Christmas, so my brother came and complained as he dragged me out to take me to my mother's. In the car, he smoked and said I was faking my sickness as I kept having coughing fits. He went on and on about how mom was selling the house right from underneath him, how the house belonged to him, how mom gave away grandma's car to our sister when it was his, and so forth. I was trying to stay awake, but I wasn't well, and him telling me all of these things that belonged to him that weren't his was boring me. We got to my mom's, and it was a nice time. Well, I think it was. I fell asleep and was woken up for dinner. My brother was mad that he got yelled at for smoking near a sick person. Dinner was the eye-opener. "It's so nice that you're allowing your brother to live with you. I had no idea you were so close," said my mother. "What? No," I started. "Have some more water. You sound terrible," said my brother, forcing water onto me. "I was worried he had no place to stay, but you are helping him," my mom went on. "Yes, she is, like a good big sister. She invited me to come take care of her, you know, 'cause she's special and all," said my brother. "No, I didn't. He's not," I tried to say, but ended up in a coughing fit. "She didn't invite you to stay?" asked my mom. "She did," cried my brother before he leaned over and whispered to me, "Don't be a wuss. I don't even want to write what he called me here. I'm not able to have anyone else on my lease or to live with me," I choked out after my coughing fit. "We'll lie," said my brother cheerfully. I glared at him. "How will I lie? I am special, and special people can't lie." I snapped as best as I could at him. Well, that ended dinner. Before my brother was supposed to take me home, my mom offered, but my brother insisted he would. I had learned from my sisters, other brother, father, and mother that my brother had been going around telling everyone that he was moving in with me. He had told them that I was going to get a bigger place and he wouldn't even have to pay rent. I couldn't believe it. He drove me home. I was mad, but he was going on about how homeless he was when we were going back. So stupidly, after he brought in the gifts from others to me, I allowed him to stay the night. I figured, it's Christmas. It's a nice thing to do after all. This was a terrible idea. He smoked, so my place smelt like a smoker's place. He blasted the TV even after I told him not to. "The neighbors won't mind," he said. He raided my kitchen to the point I needed to go food shopping right away, and he wouldn't leave until I grabbed the phone and told him I was going to call the cops and then mom. After his visit, he kept telling people he was going to live with me. I took longer to recover from the cold, and while cleaning up the mess he left, I found suit marks and even a needle with strange stuff in it mixed in with my cat toys. Mind you, I found that needle by the fact I almost got it in my foot. My home looked like a rock star trashed it. My friends came over and helped me finish cleaning. As the new year hit, my mom thanked me for helping my brother, and I told her, I am not. I love him. For God's sake, I do love him, but he is not welcome to my home ever again. I'm so mad at him, I don't want to see him. But he's homeless. His fault. He had over a year to find a place. I found one in less than 30 days when you guys kicked me out of your house. But he is your brother, whom partied like a rock star in my apartment and smoked around someone who can't breathe. Yeah, not having it. Also, there was a needle there. You're diabetic. Is it yours?
Nope, I'll ask your brother.
Thought that was the end of it. But a few days after that, my friend and I were at my place when my brother stopped in to check on me. As I was now mostly recovered, he explained that the needle I had found was slang for something that he had been using injecting into his warts to get rid of them, and he demanded it back. I told him I threw it out. He offered to take out my trash, which I repeatedly told him I was fine. He finished by giving me a long-winded speech about how useful it would be to have him live with me. I literally had to push him out of the door and tell him I'd rather be eaten alive by piranhas than ever live with him again, as he is a nightmare. As it stands, it's been about 9 months since then. He's now mooching off his friend and still telling anyone who will listen how he turned me down when I asked him to live with me. My mom is honestly getting a bit of a laugh out of it since my brother has been changing the story so much over all this time. I haven't seen him since I made him leave, and honestly, I'm good with that. If your brother or sister asked if they could live with you, would you let them? And why or why not? Please let us know.
I'd never let my sister Sharon live with me. She thinks the world revolves around her.
Asked me to quit on the spot? Okay, I'll take you up on that. This happened 20 years ago, after I had just turned 18 and during my first real job as a cook in a franchise that has a very creepy clown as the mascot. After working there for 6 months, I decided that I preferred to work as a bartender, so it was known that I was looking to find some job in a bar. This is a bit relevant with what happened. So I was supposed to clock out at 4 p.m. As soon as my shift ended, I punched my card. Yes, we used to punch cards back then, and I was on my way to change clothes so I could leave. As I was leaving the kitchen, a big group of customers, like 10 or 12, walk into the store. So one of the managers demanded I stay to help. No, she did not ask me if I can help. She demanded that I help, even though I had already clocked out. Being 18 and nice, I agreed to stay and help. Around 20 minutes later, and I was still in the kitchen with several orders still to do. So I was really complaining to the second manager, who's also working the kitchen at the time, that I really needed to go. For some reason, the other manager, the one that demanded that I stay to help, overheard my complaints and starts yelling at me that I'm useless and that I should be grateful that I have a job and that I shouldn't say these things as she knows I'm searching for another job and she could fire me on the spot. Mind you, she was not working the kitchen, she just entered the kitchen to grab some stuff. So I told her that I had already finished my shift and I was not getting paid for the extra time I was there and that I was already late for the plans I had. So she yelled to me, "If you want to leave now, you might as well quit." Cue malicious compliance. I followed her instruction to the letter. I told her, yes, I want to leave now, so I quit. I took off my shirt and pants, as they were company issued, and went to pick up my stuff, wearing only my drawers. Even after picking up my clothes, I didn't bother to get dressed, just walked out of the front door like that. My shoes were also mine, so I was not barefoot. I walked to my car where I put on the rest of my clothes. This happened in full view of the customers, as the kitchen is in direct view from the whole store. She was dumbfounded, and some customers even clapped and cheered because they had heard how nasty she was being to me. Later, I found out that she was reprimanded by the owner, probably because everything that happened in view of customers, and I even got a small bonus on my last paycheck. Within the next couple of weeks, I found a bartending job that I kept for a few years, so in the end, everything was for the best. Edit, because people are asking. I'm not from the USA. In my country, you can legally walk in a bar at the age of 18. Edit 2. Because I see a lot of people hang up on the people cheered part, when I left, the customers that were there told me that I did the right thing and clapped. I didn't say that I got a standing ovation, and I never said everyone. I just said some people. In my country, people cheer and clap for all sorts of stupid things. Glasses fall down and break, people cheer. People get in a fight, people cheer. It's more common than you would think. But even if you do not believe me, that's okay. I just wish that I was able to entertain you. Edit 3. Because people keep asking, I'm from Greece. Although from my understanding, the same thing, cheering for things that break, is happening all around the world. I saw many people mentioning the UK and Australia. Am I the jerk for filing charges against my roommate and suing her for my hospital bill? This happened several years ago. I was a 20-year-old female and in college. I was living with my 2 best friends. One of them was moving out so that she could move in with her boyfriend. I placed an ad looking for another roommate. That's how I met Erin. Before she moved in, she informed me that she was vegetarian, but she wouldn't have a problem if other roommates weren't. She moved into our apartment a month later. The next day after she moved in, she cooked breakfast for us. I was surprised. We didn't ask her to, and by her own words, she wanted to do something nice. She had made pancakes, bacon strips, and hash browns. I am deathly allergic to a few things, so I immediately asked her what was in the food, but I didn't mention my allergies. Huge mistake. She listed the ingredients, and I didn't find anything I was allergic to. Edit. She told me it was regular bacon, not that it was fake bacon or that it had soy. I started eating, and everything tastes a little off. I tried the bacon, and there's definitely something wrong with it. At this point, she does a ta-da and smugly told us, "I bet it tastes exactly like meat." I'm freaking out now. I told her I am severely allergic to soy and asked her whether there was any soy. Now she's apologizing and said she didn't know and that she's sorry she lied and blah blah. I'm experiencing anaphylactic shock, throat closing up, dizzy, the works. My best friend freaks out and calls an ambulance. I had to stay in the hospital for 2 days. With the US healthcare, the ambulance, plus my hospital stay, it racked up a lot of money. Money that I did not have. In the meantime, I also filed a complaint with the police. Food tampering is a felony. I had a lucky break. My best friend had filmed the breakfast to post it on Instagram, and she got the whole thing on video. In the end, Erin had to plead guilty to some law degree of felony. She didn't get any jail time, but got community service. Once she was found guilty, I sued her for the hospital fees. I won that one too. I did all of the legal things under the advice of my uncle's friend who is a lawyer. He said something about how it would be easy to sue if she had a guilty charge. I also did not have any contact with Erin during any of this under the advice of my lawyer. Erin's scholarship was canceled and she had to drop out. She also went into debt paying medical fees. I saw her on Facebook a few days ago and she's still down on her luck. I guess a felony charge makes it very hard no matter how small the charge was. I know she's the jerk for lying about food. I want to know whether I'm the jerk for everything I did after. Because bottom line is, I basically messed up her whole life because she put the wrong ingredients in the breakfast that she made only to do something nice. Edit. You guys are complaining like as if I wrote the law on tampering food or like I was the one who decided what charges to file or as if I was the judge or jury that gave the verdict. This is a snore fest. Throwing the account away. You guys can keep whining all you want, but that doesn't change the verdict. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is Erin? Please let us know. That's why I don't do anything nice for anyone. I just don't want it to backfire on me. No, I'm not working overtime since I already told you my last day was today. It was 1994 and I was just laid off from my last job as the general laborer at a machine shop. Was seriously pounding the pavement when my middle brother calls me up and tells me about a job in a local machine shop. I've done a bit of machining while in the last shop, but nothing where I would be actually doing setups and measurements, etc. I was really just the help, but what the heck, nothing to lose. Owner basically hires me on the spot at about $2 more than minimum wage at the time. For me, I was just glad to have a job, so I was doing fairly well, considering I was only out of work for basically 3 weeks. Over the next 4 years I worked there, but was really mistreated by my boss. If you messed up, even in the most minor way, he would scream at you for a solid 10 minutes. If he and his wife had an argument, he would take it out on the few employees he had by screaming at whoever was in his sight that day. Finally, it's the end of 1998, and my brother and I are out looking for new jobs while still working at the shop. My brother happens to find a job and announces that he's giving his 2 weeks notice. For the boss, this was very sudden, and he did not understand, but when my brother tells him that he's leaving for more money and benefits, he actually coughed and said, "What? I pay every one of you what you're worth." So we're all clear, our current rate was $8 an hour, which literally meant that my best raise each year was 35 cents. At this point, he really tried to figure out what the other employer was offering my brother, but I was not about to tell him, and neither were the other 2 employees at this point. We were all tired of his crap. 2 weeks goes by, and my brother is finally gone, and now it really hits the fan. Now he has to get on the machines and do work he hasn't needed to do in years. He couldn't ask anyone else, and no one had answered his ads for a machinist working for the meager amount he was offering. At this point, I was working a complete center of CNC machines, which included multi-axis mills and multi-axis lathe for a large group of select parts. I could do a complete teardown and reset all of the setups on the machines, write all of the code for programming the machines, G&M code for those of you who know what I'm talking about, and also make just about any part you can dream of on the main Has mill. About 6 weeks goes by, and another employee quits for other reasons, but really is just more of the way he treats us. He goes on a tirade for about a week, and it's at that point I know I need to step things up. Christmas is on Friday, and it's the Monday before, and he comes into my shop center and hands me an envelope. I ask what's up, and he just says it's your Christmas bonus. I couldn't believe it. Been there almost 4 years, and this had never happened before. After taxes, it was nearly 2 weeks' pay, so I was elated. Time to do Christmas shopping for the parents. Later that night, I sat down and realized it was really a bribe to hold me there as long as he could so he could hold me there. Fast forward to right after New Year's, and I get a call from who would become my next employer. We talked back and forth for about 2 weeks, and then I waited. Third week into January, and it's Tuesday morning, and just like clockwork, he's riled up about something insignificant, but decides to take it out on me. After he's done his tirade, he stomps off, and I head to the back of the shop to make a phone call. Speak to the employer, and the shop foreman tells me I'm hired and asks when I can start. I say that I would like to offer my 2 weeks, and he says absolutely. See you in 2 weeks from the Monday coming up. I hang up the phone and walk up front and wait till he turns around, and I simply say, "You have my 2 weeks," and then turn around and walk out of his office. About a minute later, I see him stomping off to his house. Shop was in a very large garage on his property. Lunch came and went, and still no boss until around 2 p.m., and suddenly he shows up and starts saying that I'm very ungrateful, not just for him teaching me everything that he knows, but also for giving me a bonus that I didn't deserve. At this point, we had been on overtime since earlier last spring, but he didn't want to pay anyone what they requested, so he was forced to have us all work overtime for almost the full year so far. With my brother gone, it made things even more crazy, but it was expected. On to his tantrum. I listened to his idiotic ramblings and finally just said, "I'm done." His final retort was that he never should have hired me in the first place. At that point, the only way I can describe it was the break of a pencil in my head. That sudden crackle, then clear break of the wood that is crisp and thorough. I simply coughed to shut him up and said with the same clear tone that I had heard in my head, "Today is my last day. No need to extend this 2 weeks." He simply said fine and stomped off. This is actually where I thought I was feeling the best I had felt in a long time. I was wrong. 2 hours later, I was finishing up packing away all my tools, and I had finally shut down my machines for the last time, and he walked back into the shop. He was livid. "What the heck are you doing? You still have work to do before you leave today." My response was, "I'm not working additional overtime since I already told you it was my last day." With that, I picked up my last set of tool cases and left the shop, never to look back again. Hope you enjoyed my experiences, and sorry for the long-winded malicious compliance. For those who want to know, the employer I moved to paid me 3 times my old rate, and yes, they gave really good Christmas bonuses every year. Am I the jerk for giving my mom a fake number when she asked for my job's contact info? I'll give some backstory first. I'm female, 18, and my mother, who's 50, is extremely clingy. I have no idea why, but she's always done this. I've always been the most independent out of all of my siblings, and therefore she's always trying to be in my business. I understand that she's my mother, and I love that she cares about me, but there are times when I must draw the line. At my last job, she would demand I text her whenever I get to work and whenever I leave, which was extremely doable. However, sometimes I'd arrive a bit later than I wanted and would have to immediately begin to work. I wouldn't be able to text her, and she would flip out every time, calling my phone 20 to 30 times and calling my siblings and father asking where I was. She began to call my work phone, which was extremely embarrassing for me because sometimes my boss would answer. Once when I was driving to work, my phone wasn't plugged into my Bluetooth, and so I couldn't text or answer calls. She then called my boss's personal phone number, which I still have no clue how she got, and asked him about me. I was furious and told her if she had just been patient for 5 minutes, I would have answered, and she didn't get it. I'm always a perfect child and do everything she says / never get into any trouble, so I don't know what the obsession is about. The worst thing she did was call my boss's personal phone during everything going on and tell him I couldn't come in because it was dangerous. I had to find out about this by getting my weekly schedule and thinking I was fired because I had no shifts. I had to learn from my boss, who was super nice about it, why I was off the schedule because my mom hadn't told me. It was the most embarrassing moment I've ever felt, and she didn't understand why I was upset with her about it. For my new job, I've tried to set boundaries. I've told her my job has our emergency contact and that I would text her when I arrive and left. She asked for my boss's name and the store address, which is fine, and then asked for his personal. I gave her a fake number. I told my sister about this, and she told me I was being petty and wrong, but I don't think she understands what it's like to have none of your privacy respected. My mother even begged that she drive me to work on my first day while she waited in the car as if I'm a kid. Her behavior is making me hate being around her as well as refrain from telling her anything about my personal life. So, am I the jerk for giving my mom a fake number so she doesn't embarrass me at work? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for giving her mom a fake number or not? Please let us know. Man tells me our store hours. So, retail store setting, shortened due to what's going on, and that day, a lack of staff caused us to close pretty early, about 3 or 4 hours. I, the manager at the time, had to stay behind and process online orders leaving our store. I turned off all of the lights, yanked the metal doors closed, and proceeded with closing paperwork/deposits as I will not be selling anything for the rest of the day. All fine and good until about an hour after, when I'm in the stockroom grabbing items for this pesky order. I emerge from the back to find a man in my store browsing, knowing he has pulled open our closed gates and the sign apologizing for the inconvenience. Me. Hello, sir. I'm very sorry, but we're closed. Man.
No, you close at 7.
He continues on his shopping adventure. Me, trying to be as polite as possible. Unfortunately, not today. We had to close at 3 today due to a lack of staff. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Man.
No, you close at 7. I'll continue shopping. Thank you, I don't need help.
Me. Sir, again, we're closed. We have a sign up saying we're closed, and mall admin also knows we're closed early. If you don't leave, I will have to call security. This man gives me the dumbest look, literally drops the items he was looking at, shakes his head, and starts towards the door. Man.
You really should have a sign up saying you're closed.
As he opens the metal gates again and leaves, I stood there, so astounded. I turned the lights, music, and outside store sign all off. The gates were closed, and this man just wanders in. Just why? Entitled Karen tries to claim my phone as her own. So I was sitting at KFC playing on my phone when innocent kid saw and asked what game I was playing. Hey mister, what game is that? Me. Oh, this? It's called Jetpack Joyride. You basically have to try to go the furthest without touching lasers or zappers. Oh, cool. And proceeds to go back to his mom. Mind you, I'm sitting at my table waiting for my food to be called. Entitled Karen. Excuse me, can my son play on your phone? You see, I don't have that game installed and can't find it. Apparently, she doesn't know what Google Play Store is. Me. Sorry, ma'am, but I can't, as I just recently got this phone and don't want anything bad happening to it. But the app is on the Play Store if you want to download it. Karen. I have no data on my phone. She said this with a slight smirk. And my son really wants to play it. Me. Look, I would if I could, but I also need my phone as I'm waiting on a very important phone call, which should be happening any time now. This was a lie. I just wanted her to go away and leave me alone. Karen. Obviously you're not, as I can clearly see you are playing a game. Me. Yeah, I'm playing a game to pass the time. Doesn't stop me from answering calls. She huffed and stormed off. I heard my order being called and decided to go collect it from the counter. Me being me, I decided to leave my phone on the table, and boy, shouldn't have done that. When I got back, it was gone, and I immediately looked at Entitled Karen's table, and my phone was in her hand as she was giving it to her kid. I go to her table. Me. Excuse me, what the heck do you think you're doing taking my phone? I told you my son wanted to play your game, and what my kid wants, my kid gets. Me. You have till the count of 3 to hand it back before I get the police involved. Innocent kid goes to give me the phone back when Entitled Karen takes it out of his hand. I told you my son wanted to play on your game. I start to count with my hand out. Karen calls for someone over. Employee. What seems to be the problem, ma'am? This guy is trying to steal my phone. Employee looks at me. Is this true, sir? Me. If it was true, do you think I would still be standing here? The truth is that this lady took my phone off my table when I went to grab my order and will not give it back. You liar! Me. You see this watch? I point to my watch. It's a smart watch, and the beauty of this thing is, it has a Find My Phone feature, which when pressed, will make my phone make an audible noise. Karen starts to lose her color a little bit and thinks I'm bluffing. Me to Entitled Mom. Shall I show you? Karen. I just realized I'm late for an appointment. No, you sit right there. I tap my watch a few times, and to her amazement, my phone actually went off in her hand. Sorry, that's my notification sound. She stuttered here. I proceeded to press my watch again, to which the phone went off again. Employee to Karen. Ma'am, I suggest you give this guy his phone back. Everyone is staring at this point, with my anxiety skyrocketing. I hate being the center of attention. Karen. He must have hacked my phone with his watch. I managed to snatch the phone back and looked at employee. Here's how I can prove this is my phone. There are 3 ways of unlocking it. Facial recognition, biometrics, fingerprint, and the good old password. I unlocked all 3 times, and to add salt to injury, I proceeded to show my ID to employee, saying, keep a note of this, and proceeded to check my gallery whilst she was looking at my ID. Me. I always keep a picture of my ID on my phone just in case it gets stolen and I have no chance of getting it back. I wipe it clean. Employee checks the picture. Employee. Want me to call security? Me. Yes, please. I get my phone back and allowed the kid to play a game or two whilst his mom was ranting and raving about how they should believe her, and I was allowed to steal her phone. Turns out, from what the kid was telling me, this isn't the first time this has happened. My meal was refunded and basically on the house because of all the trouble. How I love Karens. No, I can't leave the gas station I'm working at during the middle of my shift to order McDonald's for you. This was quite a while ago, over a year at least. I don't remember exactly how long, but I still think about it from time to time, wondering what planet this lady must have come from to think a request such as hers was even remotely reasonable. I work at a gas station in a small town. Although the town is very small, a major highway cuts through it, and the gas station where I work is often fairly busy. We're actually busy enough to justify having 2 workers, but the owners disagree and figure the gas station itself is small enough that 1 worker should be able to handle things fine on their own. Yes, I have some stories that prove the owners have clearly never had to work under the conditions they expect us to, but those are for another day. My point is that the cashier on duty for that shift is the only person working there at that time, unless they're training someone, and trainees are given exactly 2 days of training before getting thrown in the deep end because, God forbid, the owners have to pay 2 people to work at the same time. Never mind it gets busy enough to have lines snake around the whole building quite often. I should also mention our number is similar to a few other places, including some that are actually in the next town over. So when we answer the phone, we answer with, "Hello, you've reached name of town, name of gas station." The idea being, upon hearing this, any misdials will realize immediately they have the wrong number and prevent conversations like the following. Obviously, it didn't work in this case. It's a typical day at work, and I had just finished helping a customer. It was a rare, blissfully slow day, so far. So there was only one other customer in the store at the time who was busy browsing the drink section we had when the store phone rang. Normally, our policy is customers in store get priority over phone calls, but as the only customer in the store wasn't actually ready to check out yet, I went ahead and answered it. This is the conversation that ensued. Me. Hello, you've reached our gas station. How may I help you? Karen.
Yeah, I want to call ahead my order so y'all have it ready when I get there. I want a McDouble and a large fry with
me. Cuts the lady off. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but this is a gas station, not McDonald's.
This isn't McDonald's?
No, ma'am, it's the gas station. Karen.
Are you sure?
Me. Glances at the gas pumps outside, thinking, what the heck? Yes, ma'am, I'm sure.
Well, I called because I want my order ready when I get there.
Me. Well, then you'll need to call McDonald's. Karen.
Can't you just run over there and hand your phone to them? Or just order for me and I can talk you through it?
At this point, I should mention the store phone is obviously a landline phone. I mean, yeah, it's cordless, but it has a limited range on how far you can take it from the base before it stops working. So not only is this request ridiculous, but it's also literally impossible. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't do that. Karen.
What do you mean you can't do that? Why not? This is terrible customer service.
Unintelligible yelling and ranting. So yeah, she literally started yelling at me because of her mistake and the fact she was apparently too lazy, entitled, to hang up and dial the correct number, instead expecting me to leave my actual job in the middle of my shift, leaving the store unsupervised to help her pre-order her McDonald's so she wouldn't have to wait, who, from her attitude with me, I can only guess she would have immediately complained that it was cold. By now, the in-store customer is ready at the counter, and as the person on the phone is actually not even wanting us, it was time to cut this off, and while admittedly probably wasn't the right way to handle things, I needed her off the phone so I could help my actual customer. I completely dropped my polite retail persona and decided to be absolutely blunt. Look, lady, I cannot leave my workplace while I'm working. I have my own customers to help. The phone we're speaking on is a landline, as are most businesses' phones, and even if I wanted to help you, it doesn't have the range to go that far. As for customer service, you are not my customer. You are McDonald's customer, and it's actually not my job to help you order your McDonald's. Have a great day. The last part said in an overly sweet, sarcastic tone that I generally reserve for Karens. I hung up without even giving her a chance to respond, then helped my actual customer. She never called back, and I never got in any trouble. So she either didn't complain or complained to the wrong place, and I honestly have no idea if she ever did get her McDonald's. Speaking of McDonald's, what's your favorite thing from McDonald's? Please let us know.
Travis Scott me for the win, bruh. Straight up.
Disrespected, overworked, and underpaid employee gets the last laugh. I have always been a hard worker, thanks to my parents' work ethic and raising 3 kids on a shoestring budget. My dad took every bit of overtime he could get, missing holidays and never using vacation or sick time so my mom could stay home with us kids and have a hot meal on the table every night. When we were school-aged, my mom went back to school and got a job where she could be home when we got off the bus and shuttle us to every sport and activity we wanted to participate in. To this day, I still have no idea how they afforded it all. So it was natural for me, the oldest of 3, to apply for jobs as soon as I turned 15, landing a retail position where I worked every hour allowed by my work permit. I saved up enough to buy a used car before I was even old enough to drive, and once I got my driver's license, I worked 2 or 3 jobs at a time to save up for college. I got a summer internship at my dad's company that led to me working my way up through the industry towards an engineering position, which I was already studying in college. At the beginning of my last year in college, I had already accepted a job offer with a company I'll call Jerks Inc. for a full-time engineering job after I graduated. As a salaried Jerks Inc. employee, I was not paid overtime, but still worked a minimum of 60 hours a week and often 80 to 100 hours a week when I worked at remote job sites all over the US, which was about 80% of the time. These jobs had me outside all day in the scorching summers of the southern US to the frigid winters of the northern states. My manager at the time strictly enforced the policy of only 1 paid camp day after any given trip, even if I had worked 2 consecutive 100-plus hour weeks. He never traveled and left work each day the minute he clocked 8 hours. Other managers called me copy girl because they only briefly saw me in the morning making copies of manuals and drawings before I raced back out to another demanding job site. One day I was called into my manager's office and reprimanded for frequently using the company phone, designated for business use only, in the middle of the night. I pointed out every one of those calls on the phone bill were from our customers needing emergency technical support. He had no idea my job required 24/7 on-call response. After 5 years, I had a small team under me who put in the same grueling hours and enjoyed the same $500 bonus each year. I was repeatedly denied requests to give them raises or paid overtime, and when I back calculated my effective hourly wage over the last 5 years, it was less than I was making at my first job at 15. I subsequently gave my notice. In my exit interview, the bigwigs were very upset and worried that I would take their clients with me. So they tried to make me sign a non-compete agreement on my way out the door. I laughed to myself and politely declined, yet I still took a consulting position in a completely different industry. After a couple months, former clients started calling asking me to work on some big projects. When I told them they would need to call Jerks Inc., they said they already had and my entire team had quit shortly after I did, leaving no one there capable of doing the work they needed. I decided to start a side business intending to work a couple hours per quarter. But when word got out that I was back in the industry, it quickly became more than a full-time gig. My old team had also refused to sign a non-compete when they quit, and they all ended up coming to work for me. The bigwigs at Jerks Inc. threatened to sue me for poaching clients and ex-employees despite not having a leg to stand on, and eventually had to contract my company for some of their upcoming projects, requiring the services they could no longer provide in-house. When my team and I walked into Jerks Inc.'s conference room for the first project meeting, the manager stared down at the table. I couldn't hide my huge smile as I handed out our rate sheet, which was around 10 times more than they had paid us as employees. Have you ever been paid unfairly? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
Not really, but only because I've never had a job.
Am I the jerk for not doing anything for my daughter's birthday? My daughter, let's call her Thea, turned 15 last Saturday, and due to everything going on, we couldn't really celebrate it. I asked her a few days before if there was something special that she wanted to do, and she said no. On the day of her birthday, I asked her if she wanted me to order a cake, and she refused that too. She's introverted and doesn't like making a big deal of things, so I let it be. She spent most of her day talking to her friends on call, and I cooked a nice dinner for her and my son. My wife is usually the one who organizes birthdays and stuff, but she's been living with her mother for the past few days due to some health issues. On most birthdays, my wife is also met with the "I want nothing" by my daughter, but she does stuff anyways. She usually bakes a cake, buys some gifts, and cooks all her favorite foods. The next day, on call, she asked me what I did for Thea's birthday, and when I told her my daughter didn't want a celebration, she blew up on me. According to her, my daughter is too shy to ask for things and doesn't like asking people to make a fuss about her birthday. She was very angry that I didn't even buy her a cake, even after I repeatedly told her that Thea said she didn't want a cake. According to her, these are things that should be done without asking. I would like to mention that my wife coddles my kids a lot. I thought that was the end of the conversation. Later in the evening, my brother-in-law showed up with cake and gifts for Thea. My wife probably asked him to do so, but he's very close to the kids, so I didn't think much of it. But then he jokingly said to me, "What kind of father doesn't buy cake for his kid's birthday?" I told him the same thing again, and he said that having your birthday during everything going on is horrible enough, and I should have just bought some cake. I agree, it is, but she said she didn't want it. It's been annoying me a lot. I hate how both my wife and brother-in-law keep implying that I don't know what my own kid wants. I just want to know, am I really the jerk? I just did what my daughter asked. More information. 1. I did not do nothing for my daughter. I made pizza for dinner, which she loves. I also sang her the birthday song and hugged her really tight. There was someone who had a problem with that. My daughter isn't big on physical contact, but she likes to hug people on their birthdays. It's a tradition she started. I was not forcing her to do something that she didn't want to do. 2. The whole buying the cake on the same day. I don't know how hard it is where you live, but as long as I can remember, cakes are bought on the day of the birthday. I did not know this was something people didn't do. Unless of course it's a customized cake, and we haven't done that for the kids since they were 10. 3. My wife is not a horrible person. A little bit overbearing, sure. She did wish my daughter a happy birthday in the morning, but she's busy taking care of her mother. Update. Wow, I can't believe the number of things people picked apart from this post. Some of you are worse than English teachers trying to find hidden meanings in blue curtains. However, I decided to apologize to her. I did speak to my daughter. I sat her down and apologized for not doing anything or buying a cake, and her only response was, "Papa, chill, it's just a birthday." I did give her money, and before you get on my case of how unthoughtful that is, she usually spends her money on books or clothes. I feel those are hard things to pick for anyone, not just my daughter. I would rather she buy something she likes than be stuck with something she doesn't. I think the major problem for people is that I waited till the day of her birthday to buy her a cake, which means I don't care about my daughter. I don't know what to say about that. Getting a good cake isn't that hard. People keep saying I should have pre-ordered so they don't run out of cakes. If the store doesn't have what I want, I'll just go to another store. There's a million of them. Also, that one person who got on my case for saying my daughter instead of our daughter needs to calm down. I'm gonna end this here. Thanks to all the people who sent me an award. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or did he do nothing wrong? Please let us know. I dare you to not get me a cake on my birthday, Mr. Reddit. Boss tells me I'm not a manager, so I stopped doing her job. I have worked in my job for a long time now. My boss is never available for help and hardly on site. Recently, she has got a new manager who's not impressed with her work ethic, but then lockdown happened and he had to shield. She has gone straight back to her old ways. Boss will often ask me to do her work for her to save her coming in, which I've never minded doing up until recently. I had a meeting with my boss after an incident at work where someone tried to attack me. I told my boss I didn't feel supported by her after it had happened as she wasn't present and didn't manage it well afterwards. In the middle of the meeting, boss says, "Perhaps you want to consider some easier work in a different department." Me, what? Why? Boss, well, you do take on a lot of extra work that you don't need to. A lot of this work is manager's jobs. Maybe you need to learn to say no instead of taking on all this work. I asked if there was something wrong with my standard of work, if she had concerns, etc., and she says no. 3 months down the line, 4 of the team leave and they got new people in. Boss, oh, OP, can you induct new starters on their first day? Me, sorry boss, that's a manager's job. Boss, can you complete fire risk assessment? Me, sorry boss, that's a manager's job. After a while, she stops asking me things. Then one day, she's working from home. I'm pretty sure she's been telling her manager she's on site throughout lockdown, but mostly isn't. This huge incident kicks off with residents, emergency services are called, etc. I call boss and explain to her what happened. Boss, OP, can you please do follow-up with commissioning body, staff, and residents involved, and write the report and send it all directly to me, please? Me, sorry boss, you will need to come in to manage this. I'm not a manager, that's not my job. Boss, just this once, please. I refused to manage this incident. Turned out she was visiting a friend who lived at the coast whilst she was supposed to be on site. Someone accidentally let it slip to her manager when he called in the incident and there was no one to manage. He asked me to deal with the incident. I explained I couldn't and that boss had reported me as taking on too much work to OH. A full investigation has been launched into her conduct and ability to do her job. Manager now talks to me directly and supervises me. He's helping me apply for a promotion. Boss is on leave pending investigation. Edit. Again, to answer people who ask why I would do boss's work in the first place. The residents still deserve support and to be given the best chances. If I can make that easier for them by taking on extra work, I will. There's enough going on for people who come to us. They don't need things being messed up because others don't want to do their jobs. My eyes are okay, lady, but you might need an appointment with your eye doctor. So this happened earlier today at a Target-like store in India. For the record, store workers wear black polos with orange collars and the name of the store embroidered in the same orange, black pants and orange masks. Now I went there today to get supplies wearing a bright yellow floral blouse, a blue floral face mask, and blue ripped jeans. As I'm carefully trying to take my cart to the checkout counter, a lady zips across me and cuts me in line. Now because of her speed in cutting across from me, I didn't see her and my cart hit her accidentally. I immediately apologized because my cart hit her. I'm sorry, even if it wasn't actually my fault because she was cutting in line. But this lady starts yelling at me. Are you blind? Me. I am sorry, ma'am, but you came in front of me. Watch where you're going. I don't know where these people are from. Who the heck hired you? I expect to see the manager. Me. Ma'am, I'm a customer just like you. I don't work here. Furthermore, I'd recommend not dashing across crowded stores if you don't want someone running into you. Lady. You swine. At this point, I wore my headphones and walked over to another counter, and the lady starts complaining, still screaming, to her cashier. Karen. You have no protocol as to how you hire people? I demand to see a manager. Cashier. Ma'am, she's not an employee, and you did cut in line. I've had it with you people. I need a discount for your rude behavior. I demand to see a manager. By this point, my cashier has already called for a manager and has finished processing my items. Manager comes, unbeknownst to us, she's seen the entire incident. She walks over to me first and says, I'm sorry ma'am, on behalf of the store, you get 10% off on your total order, and motions to my cashier to process the discount. Manager then heads over to the lady. Lady, your employees are not only blind, but also rude. Manager, sorry ma'am, but the ma'am in the yellow is not an employee, but a customer. As you can see, our uniforms are very different. I'm sorry, but we cannot issue you a discount, but I can recommend an excellent eye doctor to you. And manager walks away. I don't know what happened after because I was done paying and had to exit, otherwise I would have held up the line. The conversation has been translated from Hindi to English, so the dialogues aren't exact, but are as close as I could get them without changing the meaning. Am I the jerk for taking away my pregnant wife's credit card because she keeps ordering food that's bad for our baby? My wife is 6 months pregnant, and cravings are hitting her hard. I sympathize with that, but unfortunately, it seems like her cravings are all for things that our doctor has specifically told us to avoid for the health of our baby. She just can't seem to control herself when the cravings hit. She ends up door dashing the forbidden items. It's not like she's done this once or twice either. In the last week, she has ordered Subway 4 times and sushi twice. This has been going on for months. I've tried to convince her to make these things at home with approved ingredients, but she says they just aren't the same. I've asked her to consider the health of our baby, and she says that her mental health is more important. I can't help but think that this is a ridiculous notion. Foregoing uncooked lunch meat and seafood isn't going to give her emotional trauma. I'm the main breadwinner in the house and decided to cut off her access to our cards for the time being. I think this might make me a bit of a jerk because it makes me feel more like her parent than her partner. But I am a soon-to-be parent. I need to protect my kiddo. Edit. Sushi and Subway aren't the only things that she's been eating on the forbidden list. Those were just the examples from the last week. I probably should have included that in my OP. She's also eating a lot of undercooked meat and eggs, drinking energy drinks, had a few glasses of wine, etc. Edit 2. Doctor has been informed of her diet choices. He sternly told her that she needs to change that. She refuses to listen to him about this too. Edit 3. I accept that Reddit thinks I am the jerk. However, I still feel this is justified behavior. I will not allow my wife to have a credit card until she agrees to follow the doctor's recommendations for the health of our child. She still has access to our Amazon account with the card saved and is free to shop for whatever needs she has. But the only food that will come into the house is what I bring home from the grocery shopping or if we plan to get takeout together. Oh, and all the people recommending that book, Expecting Better by Emily Oster, no thanks. She is an economist, not a medical doctor, not even a scientist in the field of biology. I will continue to go by the guidelines set forth by medical professionals. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. My TV has no picture. This is from the late 70s in London. A friend had a hi-fi shop which sold TV sets among other electronics. I used to help out on Saturdays. After demonstrating some TV sets to a customer, he bought one and told him we would set it up and deliver later that night after the shop closed. Or he could lug it home himself if he wanted it earlier. He chose delivery. Setting up consisted of manually tuning in to the 3 channels available then, BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. This was done by sliding open a drawer to the set to reveal a set of flywheels, 1 per channel. There were 6 altogether to cater for future expansion if by any miracle more channels were ever added. Having tuned the channels in, our delivery guy went and installed the set in the client's flat. All was good, client was happy, and he signed off. Monday, my friend got a call saying there was sound but no picture on all 3 channels. Since there was sound, it was obvious this was not a tuning issue, so something else had gone wrong. He was asked to bring the set in as he was swamped and couldn't get anyone to him until midweek. Client came in with the set. My friend plugged it in, and behold, every channel was there in living color. Exit 1 perplexed customer with TV. Next day, same issue was reported. Sound but no picture. As it happened, our delivery guy was going to be in the customer's area, so he was told to go get the TV and bring it in. Delivery guy gets to the client's place. Client switches the set on to demonstrate sound but no picture. Delivery guy sees the problem immediately, crosses the room, and draws the curtains closed. Voila, perfect picture. Customer had placed the TV such that the sun was shining directly on the screen. Am I the jerk for getting rid of the dog? A few months ago, my husband, 35 male, and I, 29 female, spoke about getting a pet. I suggested a cat, as I've grown up with them all my life and know how to take care of them. He wanted a big, classic dog and told me about his buddy who breeds German Shepherds and wanted to get one of those. I've never been around dogs at all, let alone a big handful of a German Shepherd, so I shut down the idea and suggested rescuing a smaller dog and to get a German Shepherd later. I stay home with our 2-year-old and would be the primary caretaker of the dog, and as I don't know how to take care of a dog, a smaller one would be easier to handle and care for in my mind. Plus, our house and yard are not very big, and I do not want a dog that will grow to be huge and rowdy when I'm taking care of it most of the time. Besides, I don't like big dogs much at all, and this is definitely something we both should agree on. He seemed a bit disappointed as he does love shepherds, but understood my point. The idea has been spoken about a bit more, and a few weeks ago we went to the local rescue and found the most adorable little mutt. I said I wanted that one and said we'd be by to get her on Friday when my husband was off. Coincidentally, our kid had a checkup on that date too. We agreed he'd get the dog and I'd take care of our kid. Lo and behold, when I come home, a rambunctious German Shepherd puppy was waiting for me along with an embarrassed husband. He said he was sorry for not getting the dog we had agreed on, but his friend's deal was too good to pass up on and figured I'd learn to love the dog and would catch on quick to caretaking. No, this is not what we agreed on. I started freaking out on him and demanded he give the dog back, but he refused. Not to mention the cost of the German Shepherd versus the little mutt. Needless to say, I have been furious with my husband. I have tried to care for this dog and my toddler at the same time, but I cannot. I loathe this dog. It is so needy and hyper and not what I wanted, and I am mad at my husband for making this decision. So a few days ago, I took the dog to the rescue where we found the small mutt from earlier, who has now been adopted. I no longer want a dog or any pet at all except for a cat. My husband is angry with me, saying I wasted the pretty penny he spent on the dog and that I should have given it more time to grow on me. But I think he violated my trust and was selfish in getting a dog I didn't even want in the first place. Am I the jerk? Edit. Our home is ill-equipped for anything bigger than a basset hound. We played with the mutt we were planning on getting a few times, and she was old and very calm. It's a lot easier to get a small dog to stop doing something than a German Shepherd. I don't know the breeder friend of my husband's. He knows a lot of people, and since I had no interest in a German Shepherd for right now, I didn't ask. I couldn't have taken it back to the breeder. I don't know who they are. The German Shepherd could have ended up anywhere. Please don't judge me on what could be. Edit 2. Breeder was almost definitely not reputable. The dog came with no papers, and my husband got him for $350, down from an alleged $900. The rescue seemed to be the safest and easiest option, and assuming he has not been adopted already, I will contact a GSD rescue in the morning and alert them of the puppy, as one commenter suggested. Speaking of dogs, what's your favorite breed of dogs? Please let us know. Poodles all day, bruh. Let me speak to your manager, young man. I will have you fired. The owner and I are good friends. First, let me explain a few things here. This is not my story as such, but I got to witness it firsthand. A good friend of mine is from a family that owns 3 very successful Italian restaurants, with a pizza oven that uses actual wood, really top of the line. So he learned the business basically from the day he could walk. When he was 25, he had a good business idea. A place in the middle of the city that sells mostly slices out a window, but also whole pizza, pasta dishes, and salad, and does delivery, plus a few small tables inside if someone wants to eat there. So he created a solid business plan and had his eyes on a prime location. It's 50 meters away from the biggest parking area in the city, with 400 parking spots, where several times a year we have big city fairs, and anybody who wants to go in the park strolls right by it. So his dad said he would finance him, but as a credit to be paid back in a timely manner. They agreed on everything, and a year later he opened up. The story takes place about 2 years after they have opened, and the place is hot. He already repaid almost 75% of the credit in a mere 2 years. Usually there is a line for the slices, which are from a family-sized pizza, like 60 centimeters across, and you get 1/8 for $2.50 to $3.50, depending on what is on it. We are sitting on a table playing chess while his guys run the shop. He had already worked a full 11 hours that day. In comes a baby boomer couple, and it was clear as day that the lady with the you-know-which haircut rules this relationship with an iron fist. They sat down on the table next to us, and after not even a minute, she rudely asked us why she has no menu yet and to get off our lazy butts. I already wanted to tell her I do not work here, but he winked at me and walked over to their table, giving them our menus. I'll call her entitled lady and my friend just friend. Disclaimer: this was nearly 15 years ago, so the spoken words are not word for word, but represent what was said. Entitled lady: "It's about time you get off your lazy butt." She has waited a minute. "You can't play chess when you have people waiting. What kind of crappy service is this?" So he took their drink orders and walked behind the bar to make their drinks right away. They had to wait maybe 3 minutes for their drinks. They ordered beer that takes a bit to do correctly. Hefeweizen for you Germans. This story takes place in Germany. "About time. Did you have to brew it first? Or what's it taking so long?" My friend's patience is starting to wear thin, but he still stays friendly. "You saw me walk to the bar and make your drinks right away, then return right away. Those beers take a bit to pour correctly. I'm sorry, but there is no way I could have brought those to you any faster." "We are customers, and this is how you talk to us? Ever heard of the customer is always right? How can you be so rude to paying customers?" Now my friend really had enough. "I was very respectful towards you, while you were very rude from the moment you came in here." The moment he said that, she got this weird grin on her face, and you could tell this was exactly what she wanted. "Shut up! How dare you! I will have you know, me and the owner are old friends. I will have your job over this. Now get me your manager." Friend: "Please, I need this job." "Too late. You should have thought about this before you treated guests this rude. Now, get me the manager." Friend went behind the bar and had a short talk to one of the older guys working there. Let's call him OG. Both returned to the table. OG: "What seems to be the problem, ma'am?" Entitled lady, suddenly playing the sweet old lady that is so nice. "When we came in here, your server sat there with someone and played chess. We waited and waited, and finally asked nicely if we could have a menu. He rolled his eyes at us and gave us the menu from his table. Then we ordered drinks, and he walked over, made our drinks, and then just stood there for a good 10 minutes before he brought our drinks. And when I politely asked him to bring our beer, he was really rude to me. Since I know the owner, we eat here all the time, and usually the service is excellent. I demand you fire him and comp our meals." OG turning to my friend: "Is that really what happened?" Friend: "Of course not. She came." Entitled lady, suddenly, all the mask of friendliness gone, starts screeching. "What are you asking him for? I just told you what happened. Are you calling me a liar? Wait till the owner hears of this." At this point, my friend and OG could no longer hold it back, and they started laughing.
You think this is funny? Never have I been so insulted.
Friend. Yeah, I know. Wait till the owner hears of this. Oh wait, the owner already did hear of this. I am the owner, and I have never seen you in my life, nor have you ever eaten here. You two are just trying to scam a free meal out of me by being impossibly difficult till the server finally snaps or does something wrong, so you can ask for a manager and lie to him about what happened. Now you pay for your beer and then you go, and do not even think of coming back. You are banned. Wow, I had no idea people could get that red in the face. She put 10 euros on the table. Now get out. And they shuffled out to never return. Boy, that was the most entertaining attempt to scam him I have ever witnessed.
Am I the jerk for not forgiving my husband for what he did? I, 24, female, gave birth to my daughter 6 months ago, and it should have been the happiest moment in my life. When my daughter was born, her skin was very dark and looked like she could have 2 biological parents who were of African descent. My husband, Jim, who's 26, fake name, was furious and accused me of cheating and left right then and there. He told everyone on both sides of the family what happened, made posts on social media, and wanted a divorce. His family and a lot of our friends all called to say how upset they were with me and called me all sorts of names. My mother was by my side the entire time, and I kept professing my innocence. Jim refused to pick me up from the hospital, threw my stuff out on the lawn, and changed the locks, so I had to stay with my parents. When my sister called to ask for the baby stuff, Jim texted me a picture of the bare nursery room and said he got rid of everything. He even destroyed my art studio. I like to paint, and the art I made, and told me that my work would be too awful to sell. I was distraught and tried to focus on my baby. Weeks went by, and Jim refused to speak to me directly and has never once asked about our kid. Eventually, he agreed to do a paternity, and he was 100% the father. No one could believe the results, and it was done again. Jim's the dad. Around that same time, one of Jim's cousins did the ancestry thing, and there was around 30% of African ancestry in the family. This combined with the test, Jim's paternal great-grandmother admitted to having an affair around the time Jim's grandfather was born, and because he could pass, she just assumed her husband was the father. Since then, Jim has been reaching out and everyone has come to apologize. And while it did feel good to feel vindicated, the damage has been done. I can't unhear or unsee all of the terrible things that were said and done. Not just to me, but also to my kid. Jim made some very unacceptable remarks. Things that I thought he'd never say, and he did it so easily. Regardless of what our daughter looks like, I don't want her to be around that. What else will Jim and his family say or do the next time they get mad? How are they going to treat our daughter when she does something that upsets them? Jim has been begging for forgiveness. I said I needed time. He asked to see the baby, and I let him, but I'm too afraid to physically hand her over to him. He's repairing the nursery and keeps asking me what I would like, and I cry every time, saying we already had what I liked, and some of the items that we had can't be replaced. He asked me if I still loved him, and I admitted that he showed me his worst self, and I don't know if I could live with that image. I didn't mean to be hurtful, but it's how I feel. My sister suggested couples therapy, but I don't feel like I should have to work to fix something that I didn't break. I've never cheated and have been 100% innocent in all of this the whole time. Am I the jerk for not wanting to give Jim a second chance? Update 1. I stepped away for a few hours and couldn't believe what I came back to. I'm truly amazed by all the wonderful comments of support as well as the private messages. I also understand why some people may think this is fake, and all I can say is that you're free to believe what you want to in this. I also see some questions, and I think I should clarify a few things just in case your judgment may change. All of this initially happened around February, and I was already settled at my parents' house before lockdown. One of the reasons Jim wouldn't pick me up from the hospital was because I wouldn't admit to cheating or give him any details because there weren't any, which made him angrier. 3. Based on the pictures Jim sent me, he didn't take a sledgehammer to the crib or anything, he just took stuff down to either return it for the money or gave it away. While deeply hurtful, I wouldn't call it violent, but maybe it is. Once the truth came out, everything he and his family posted were all taken down, but I and a few friends still have the screenshots. Just to clarify, Jim is white and I'm at least half white. One of my parents is adopted, and with everything that's happened, they decided to do the ancestry thing too, and we should be getting the results any day now. Well, what do you think? Should OP give Jim another chance or not? Please let us know. I say Jim has shown his true colors. No matter what he thought happened, his response was totally unacceptable. Entitled kid gets humiliated by a rich girl. This happened a few years ago at my high school in the 10th grade. Our school had decided to organize a trip to Washington for a week. It was expensive, but the school had a contract with a candy company to help us with the cost. It was pretty nice, and it really helped those who couldn't afford the $2,500 trip. My friend's parents were going through a vicious divorce at the time. Her mother was a narcissist and loved to use her daughter to hurt her ex-husband. At the beginning of the year, both her parents were 100% supportive and even tried to help her by selling some of the candies at their jobs. However, after a while, her mom decided to change the idea and refused to help her and tried to take away her daughter's permission so she couldn't go. My friend was in tears and couldn't believe her mother would do this to her just because her father wouldn't budge on a pitiful thing. Her father tried to help her, but he had to pay his lawyer, his rent, etc. He couldn't give her the money. Her grandparents on both sides of the family helped her out as best as they could, but 3 weeks before the end of the deadline, it was clear she wouldn't make it. She was still $800 short. My friend was devastated, and her relationship with her mother was in ruins. It was bad. Then enters V, entitled kid. She was the jerk of our year. She made fun of everyone, but my friend was her favorite target. After all, a lower middle class student whose parents are divorcing and can't afford the trip? A golden target for her. She was relentless, and no matter how many times we told her off, or that she was never supported by anyone in our year, we couldn't stop her. She was like a shark who smelled blood in the water. She was from a very wealthy family and liked to look down her nose at us, middle-class peasants. Then there's M, rich girl. She was the daughter of a very, very wealthy father, the only girl. She was spoiled beyond belief by her absentee father. Her father gave her about $1,000 per month as an allowance. She was dressed in the best fashion and always had everything she wanted, except her father's attention. Yet she was never bratty, rude, entitled, or awful. She was one of the nicest people you could meet. She never bragged about her money, as she saw that as shameful behavior. She used $900 of her monthly allowance in investments for her college fund, despite her father's trust fund. The rest was used to either pay her cell phone bill or other expenses, which apparently wasn't too much. She didn't care for luxury or money, she just wanted her father to actually spend time with her. M had paid off her entire trip in a single payment. She said her father didn't want her going door to door selling candies when he could just pay for the trip himself. Plus, she wasn't comfortable doing it because of her shyness and her lousy selling skills. When news of my friend's financial troubles arrived, V was merciless to her and managed to make her cry, saying things like, "Go back to where you're from, loser," or "You should try learning how to be a good partner so you can bag yourself a rich husband. I mean, how else would you be able to get anywhere in life? You're so poor." Unfortunately for her, M saw and heard everything. The next day, my friend and I are sitting at our table in the cafeteria, and who decides to pay us a visit? If not V. She starts her usual garbage, and we try to ignore her, but it's so hard. Then M arrives with obvious Prada luggage and purse and gives my friend a stack of papers, completely ignoring V, who acts like she can't believe anyone would ignore her glorious self. M: "Hi, Mr. Teacher asked me to give you this stack of papers concerning the trip to Washington. He also said that the students going have a meeting this Friday after school." A: "But I'm not going. I don't have the money." V: "Yeah, she's too poor. Honestly, how stupid are you? And what are you doing with the bags? You stole them. You know they're fake, right?" M turns and tells V to shut up because the sheer amount of BS coming from her is nauseating. Complete silence. No one has ever been this rude to V before. Her parents, who think she can do no wrong, would have destroyed them. M goes on to tell her that she can't just talk to people like that, and the only reason she targets A is because she has no social life or friends due to her god-awful and toxic personality. "You can't talk to me like that. I'm better than you. My father's the VP of this company, and I'm rich. I can do whatever the heck I want. I'll destroy you, you jerk." M: "Yeah, I know. That's why I showed the video of you being an awful person to my father, who just so happens to be your father's boss. Or are you so entitled that you never noticed me at the company's events? Your father is my father's employee and was very interested in the video I gave my father. Now buzz off." M turns back to my friend and tells her that her entire trip was paid for by V's father as an apology for his daughter's behavior, as proven by the receipt for the trip and the stack of papers. M continues and says that V's father was so embarrassed that he gave A the luggage and purse that he was going to give V for the trip. He had asked M to give it to her because he knew that she would be happy to do it. V doesn't want to believe because there's no way her daddy would ever do this. M simply suggested that she call her father to check if it was true. V left and was not seen for the entire day. Turns out her parents were absolutely mortified by their daughter's behavior and refused to let her go on the trip. She had to publicly apologize to A in front of the whole class, with her parents standing next to her to make sure she did as they told her to. V did not come back after that year. She had been sent to a military school for problem kids. A ended up coming to Washington and got to live with her dad. M had asked if her brother, who was a lawyer, would help A's father in the divorce settlement for pro bono. It was greatly appreciated because her mother had started to go crazy in the demands, and when she hadn't got her way, she had struck A in rage. A and I are now in college and are very happy. A's dad is getting remarried. V, last we heard, got cut off from her parents and now has to live on social welfare because she doesn't have the skills to keep a job for very long. Something about not having the proper mindset or having a clashing personality with her coworkers. Am I the jerk for not wanting my dad to walk my fiancé down the aisle? My fiancé and I have been together for almost 6 years. We got engaged late last year and cannot wait to get married. My father-in-law has been to jail. He's got several face tats, multiple tattoos, tall, buff. He looks like the average depiction of a gangster. My fiancé moved around from low-income area to low-income area for most of her life and didn't live a very lavish lifestyle. Despite all this, my fiancé and him have a really close relationship. My fiancé's older brother is HOH. He's also pretty tall, buff, looks like he could easily beat you in a fight, but he's a really chill and cool guy. They both mean so much to my fiancé, and I'm happy that they're in her life. The first time my parents met my fiancé's dad, it didn't go well to say the least. They wouldn't touch his hand, backed away from him, clutched their purses, etc. Needless to say, my fiancé was rightfully upset and embarrassed that they would act like that. I then made the decision to go very low contact with them after I yelled at my parents for being disrespectful. Over these last few months, my mom has been in and out of the hospital. It's been a very scary time for our family. I started to talk to my family more because of this, which was weird considering I hadn't spoken to them properly in a long time. I refrained from talking about my fiancé as I was afraid they would voice their unacceptable views again. My mom got out of the hospital and is making a full recovery. And though my fiancé doesn't like my mom for indirectly insulting her dad, she still wanted to go visit her to make sure that she was all right. I thought it was a nice gesture, and although I didn't want my fiancé to come, based on their treatment of my fiancé's family, she promised it would be only for a few hours. When we got there, it was my aunt, my sisters, plus my brother-in-law and my parents. When we had settled in, my aunt started asking about the ring, about our wedding plans, etc. Then they asked the question, who's gonna walk her down the aisle? My fiancé, who was pretty confused, answered, my dad. My mom then asked her if she's afraid of his face tats and intimidating appearance ruining our wedding appearance. Everyone in my family agreed, and when my fiancé tried to stand up for her dad, they would either shut her down or reiterate my mom's point. Guests would be too scared to be next to him. My dad then mentioned how he was the only viable option to walk her down the aisle because she was family. According to him, her brother wasn't capable enough to do it. Once my fiancé excused herself, I yelled, yes, yelled at them for being so disrespectful and ended my argument with the line, stop forcing her. Now everyone is mad at me. My fiancé is less than half, upset because now all they will continue to do is make fun of her family. And of course, my family is upset. Edit. HOH is hard of hearing. I'm sorry for the confusion. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his family? Please let us know. I'm thinking of getting some face tats myself. Skirt! Entitled Mom expects me to clean the house with a wounded hand. Around February, Entitled Mom got a husky and just never went and trained it. Essentially, he growls whenever anyone gets close to his food or whenever he's asleep. Now, last week I was just walking by him and picked up a paper on the floor and he went and bit me, wounded 2 fingers, index and middle, of my dominant hand. Obviously, Entitled Mom is never home and was with her boyfriend, like she always is, and did not want to take me to get my hand checked out at all. When the dog bit me, it took off the skin, etc. Yet, I'm supposedly overreacting. Since I had no car, I couldn't go myself, and I've been cleaning the whole house by myself, struggling with my non-dominant hand for a week. Today, she gets home and starts yelling at me that it wasn't mopped, so we start arguing. She's saying I never clean when I'm actually the only one who cleans, because that's why I had you do the chores, not to sit like a petty doll. I'm obviously saying, look, I can't mop with my non-dominant hand. Then she argues, saying I'm overreacting. It's been a week. I'm lazy and I'm making stuff up not to clean. Now she got me mad, so I say, "You were too busy with your boyfriend and didn't even bother taking me anywhere to get my hand checked out when the dog has no vaccine." Then she argues, saying I could have taken myself, and I'm like, "The closest hospital is over 2 hours away. How am I supposed to get there by walking?" Knowing she can't argue with that, since the dog bit me at night, then she switches the topic, saying, "You act like if cleaning is such a big responsibility. You act like I keep you tied up at home." Keep in mind, I've never been allowed to attend any high school party, go out with friends, or do any extracurriculars at school. So I go off on like a 5-minute rant, saying I've given up my whole teenager years taking care of my siblings, basically being their mom more than she ever has, and never have any time for the typical teenage experience. From that, she just goes and calls me names because she knows she cannot argue with the truth that those words held. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law to stop pushing her BS on my relationship? My sister-in-law is in her late 30s. Myself and my husband, her brother, are both 26. I've been married to him for going on 6 years, and we have been together since the end of freshman year of high school. Very briefly, we stayed with her. I think we moved in when we were 19, and we left about 6 months later when we bought our first home. Throughout the entire time we were there, she did nothing but complain about my husband. She was constantly speaking horribly of him because of the decisions that he made before we started dating. She continuously told me to watch my back because she feared for my happiness and feared that he would do me over. Needless to say, my husband has been fantastic to me ever since the very beginning. So I had dealt with this for a while, had multiple discussions with my husband, and he basically just wanted to leave it alone. He chalked it up to her just being a negative person due to her marriage slowly failing. He refuses to help her with anything, but he also goes about it like she has never said anything. His way of coping, I guess. Last weekend, we were invited over for a barbecue. A few family members showed up that I had yet to meet. However, my sister-in-law at one point started bashing my husband in front of everyone the second that he walked away to go help her son with something that she refused to help him with. Her comments ranged from him being a terrible husband to having zero work ethic. He's been with the same company for almost 7 years. The whole family was tuned in, listening to her bash him, and not one person spoke up. I was trying desperately to do as he wanted and just leave it alone, but her final comment of, "He will always be a nobody," really struck a nerve. I looked at her and said, "Do you not have anything better to do with your life? Do you seriously think that anyone wants to hear you openly bash a man who's done nothing to you? Your own brother, no less?" The family fell silent, and my sister-in-law was just gawking at me. This is the first time I have spoke out of line. She finally said something like, "I know him better than you. You seem to forget that." So I said, "Well, say it to his face then, instead of being two-faced and pushing your BS off on me or any of us for that matter. Where's your husband? Why are we not discussing that he doesn't even hang out at a family barbecue or sleep in the same bed anymore?" She stormed away from the table after telling me that my disrespect was disgusting. Apparently, she was crying in the bathroom when my mother-in-law found her. Everyone in the group started saying things like, "Is she always like this?" Or, "He seems like a good man to me." Or, "Yeah, where is Chris anyways?" Chris is sister-in-law's husband. So needless to say, everyone was on my side except my other sister-in-law, who's gone to great measures to make sure I know that she now hates me and thinks I'm dumb. Am I the jerk? I used to work here. Now solve your own problems. A little over a decade ago, I worked for the local hardware outfit as the storeman/stores manager. I took this job because it was local, paid okay, and was supposed to be relatively stress-free. Unfortunately, the reality of it was that the assistant manager, Colin, was a jerk with an inferiority complex who had it in for me because I was more qualified than he was, although I had absolutely no interest in climbing the corporate ladder or taking his job. The job itself was overtasked and understaffed, and things were only getting busier as there was a building boom happening in the area at the time. As a result, I quickly ended up being run off my feet every day trying to keep up with the constant influx of goods and outgoing orders. To make matters worse, the overall manager, John, decided to reassign my 2 offsiders as delivery staff, leaving me on my own. When I protested, I was told to solve my own problems. I somehow kept up with the workload, but knowing that this was not going to work out in the long run, I continued in my attempts to get more staff in my area. Even just 1 offsider would have made a huge difference. I tried reasoning with John, saying, "What if I get sick or injured? How will you get the orders done then?" His solution was that he would have some of the casual staff from the front retail area fill in if that happened. I laughed in his face and suggested that they could not find their own backsides using both hands. Probably not the best way to handle things. Once again, I was told to solve my own problems. Okay then, fine, I will do just that. The situation continued becoming more difficult each week. The incoming goods were increasing in volume to keep up with demand. Think 2 semi-trailers per day. And as outgoing orders were to take priority, the incoming goods began piling up. Colin decided to rear his ugly head and make a fuss about stock not being checked in and stored on time. And in one of our more robust discussions, I seriously considered rearranging his face and told him so. He decided to go on an early lunch, run away, and hid from me in his office for the rest of the week. That was the day I realized I need to get out of this place. As for solving my problems, well, obviously I was looking for a new job. I answered an ad for correctional officers and attended a meeting for applicants, then set the psych tests, interviews, and was finally accepted for the training to begin in 1 month. Perfect timing. The next Monday, I walked into John's office and gave 2 weeks' notice. John was absolutely appalled that I would consider leaving such a good job. He tried offering me a raise of $1,000 per year. I laughed and said my starting pay was already $15,000 more than I was getting here and walked out. Now, you would think that a smart manager would immediately take steps to cover my position and begin training a replacement. Nope. Nothing happened for the next week and a half until on my last Thursday, John finally showed up with a replacement. Some entirely forgettable teenager who plainly had no chance of keeping up. I trained him as best as I could and the next day said my goodbyes. 2 months later, I walked in as a customer, flushed with my new job money. The place was an utter mess. There was crap everywhere, unprocessed goods still in sealed boxes, pallets of sheeting just dumped in the truck yard, and no one could find anything. The original guy I trained was nowhere to be seen, and 4 new young guys with haunting-looking faces were madly scrambling about trying to sort out their crap. No one knew where anything was, where anything goes, or even how to do a basic invoice check. Total disaster, which brought a warm glow to my evil black told-you-so heart. Upon seeing me, John quickly pulled me aside and asked if I could help out and show the new guys what to do. I took great pleasure in reminding him that I had repeatedly warned him this could happen and that not only did I no longer work here, but that he will have to, and I quote, solve your own problems. Am I the jerk for suing my boss for damages after getting out of my contract? I worked at this company for 6 years. It's a small, privately owned business, but due to the nature of the work we do, I had to sign a non-compete agreement upon getting hired. Well, about 6 months ago, I got a job offer from a company that does similar, but not directly competing work. Better pay, better benefits, shorter commute, basically an all-around upgrade for me. I told them about my non-compete, so they were aware of it, but since the company isn't a direct competitor, I figured my non-compete agreement would not apply. I asked a lawyer about it to make sure. He said there was enough differences between the two businesses and no similar clients that he thought I would be okay. Since I didn't want to completely burn bridges, I talked to my boss about it. I told him I had been offered a job and asked him if he would sign a release from my non-compete so that I could take this new job without fear of any reprisal. He refused and decided to fire me the next day. I talked with the new company that gave me the offer, and they started to second guess whether or not my non-compete would actually apply, and they withdrew their offer until I got my non-compete sorted out. So now I am unemployed and facing a court battle with my former boss. My lawyer and I put together a case, gave my boss the opportunity to just sign a release and get it over with, or fight us in court. He opted for court. I didn't know he could be that petty and vindictive. We ended up winning after asking for a summary judgment, and my non-compete was ruled invalid and not applicable to this job offer. So I told the other company, and I accepted the original offer from them. This is where I might be the jerk though. My lawyer asked me if I wanted to try and sue my old boss for damages, lost wages, unused benefits. I had over 200 hours of saved PTO, court and legal fees, wrongful termination, etc. Initially, I didn't want to, since I had won and I got what I wanted. But the more I thought about it, I decided to go ahead and sue him for damages. So I had my lawyer draw up a suit and went ahead with it. My boss was livid. He called me and went on a huge rant about how I am ungrateful and that I would be nowhere without him. About how dare I sue him when he's done so much for me. I told him he had the chance to just let me go, but he opted to fight. So in a way, he brought this on himself. I ended up winning that suit as well, and he had to pay everything. I made out pretty well. I talked with an old coworker from there a while ago, and he said that since I won, everyone else there that signed a non-compete is trying to get out of them, and my old boss is mad. My old boss thinks I turned everyone against him. I just wanted to advance my career, but I do kind of feel like a jerk about it since my old boss did give me a good opportunity when I started there. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his boss? Please let us know. Karen demands free food for her starving brats. I was eating at a restaurant when the power went out. The employees were frantically trying to get the power back up, but it didn't work. They were apologizing to customers and telling them the meal would be free. They put up signs on the door saying there was no power and they were closed for the day. I paid for my meal since I was more or less done with my food. I was speaking to the manager about the power outage. She was explaining that they would probably be closed for the day since the electrician could only come in the morning the next day. The employees couldn't even clean up the kitchen as it was in total darkness there, except for a few emergency lights. I was grabbing my jacket and was about to leave when this woman with 2 kids came up to the restaurant. She went in and said, "Hi, table for 3, please." Manager apologized and explained that the power was out and they were closed for the day. Entitled Mom said she heard that the restaurant was giving out free food, so she wanted some as well. Told manager that the kids weren't fussy and they would be in and out in a jiffy. She told the manager to just grab a couple of leftovers, which they didn't serve, and to let her have it, but also to make sure no other customers had touched it. Manager had to explain that all the food in the restaurant was cooked to order, and the chef wasn't able to cook anything once the power went out as there was no light. They have to fix the problem first, as it was a safety hazard. Entitled Mom went nuts and screamed that they were going to starve and it was all their fault. Said they were doing it on purpose because they wanted to close up early for the day and it was her right to demand that they serve her food. She said she knew that they just wanted to keep all of the food for themselves. Manager was visibly annoyed and told the lady to leave as there was no way they would be able to serve her any food today, and even if they could, they wouldn't. Entitled Mom stood there raging and complaining for 10 minutes before realizing that no one was going to do anything and left, but not before kicking a chair on her way out. Am I the jerk for kicking out Karen and her baby after she tried to take advantage of me? Me, 22 male, and Mac, 22 male, have a mutual friend, 25 female, who is pregnant. Her parents refused to help her and she's been homeless for most of her pregnancy. Me and Mac helped her with some cash here and there, but not much. She's been staying with friends and homeless shelters for women for months now. Mid-June, she asked us to let her stay at our place. She told us that the shelter she was staying at was overcrowded and she needed a week at max to find another one. Mac and I agreed. 1 week turned into 1 month, so we decided to talk to her. We told her that she's gonna have to either start pitching in or she needs to leave soon. She finally fessed up to everything. She wasn't able to work anymore and she has no money and she was scared to be in the shelter this late in the pregnancy. She told us that the father of the baby would help her only after the baby was born. She told us that she would get child support and that should be enough to move. She offered to do chores around the house in the meantime. Her due date was only 15 days away, so we agreed. In the following week, she didn't help with anything, stating her pregnancy is the reason. One day, she and Mac got into a fight. Mac was asking her about the father and when she will move out, and she blurted out that she is a tenant now, as she's been staying here for more than a month and that we can't make her leave. Evictions are on hold due to everything going on. Turns out, her plan was to stay here long enough to get recognized as a tenant and stay here infinitely. Edit. She lied about child support too. She doesn't know the father. We called the landlord. We have a good relationship with him. After yelling at us for being stupid, he offered to forget about the notice period and advised us to move by the end of the month. He had another empty apartment in the same building for us. We told her the same. We immediately told her that we were leaving by the end of the month. We can't evict her, but there is nothing stopping us from moving. After that, we just ignored her. She gave birth in the beginning of August, right after we moved out. Landlord told her that if she has been staying here for more than a month, then she is a tenant, and she's on the hook for the full rent once we leave. He also got her to sign the standard monthly rental agreement for the apartment. While he cannot evict her if she doesn't pay rent, he promised to sue her for rent when everything is over. She is also having a ton of medical bills from giving birth. She's probably unable to afford the utilities bill. She is constantly trying to come over or call us, sometimes to apologize, sometimes to ask for help. We have refused to even talk to her. I saw a very similar story, and I thought I would post mine and see what everyone thinks. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is Karen? Please let us know. Did we really have to start off with such a sad story? Shady boss lies about me to my coworkers. I have her fired and in debt for several years after. This happened back in 2011 to 2012, when I was the ripe old age of 19 years old. This is a long one, so do strap in. I got a part-time job at a fast food place specializing in subs. Not Subway, but very similar, when I was 17. It was located in the town's mall and was fairly busy. It's a national chain where I'm from. When I started there, the owner at the time was really nice, and she started that branch in my town. She was very strict on following all of the cleaning requirements and took real pride in her shop. The way it was set up financially was that the franchise taker basically had to work from open to closing, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., to even have a chance at making a decent living, and preferably only have one part-timer helping for a few hours when it was at its busiest. It's like the MLM of fast food. Why anyone would take on such a business wager is beyond me, but I digress. However, the owner actually managed to make money off it. A year or so after I started, the owner decided she would move to a different part of the country and sell her branch and have someone else take over. That lucky individual was my coworker, who was 3 years older than me. From now on, Boss Lady. She had worked there since it opened and was the natural choice to move up the ladder. Because she didn't have the money to pay for the share in the franchise, about $5,000, and nobody else was willing to pay that and have to work their butt off for minimal revenue, headquarters allowed her to take over while they bought the old owner out, and headquarters kept the share. Now, Boss Lady had no idea how to run a mile, much less a business, and small things started happening quite soon after she took over. I would normally work there after school by myself, but she would often hang around the mall when she had finished work. Boss Lady always complained about how little money she made and would often come by when me or the other part-timers were working and tell us to give her $20 to $100 right out of the register. Considering total daily sales never reached more than about $1,200, that was a lot. I barely made $12 an hour, so my motivation was too low to care, and neither did the rest of the part-timers, so we complied and gave her the money. My spider sense was tingling a bit, telling me it was fishy to grab money right out of the register, even if she was the owner. But if she wanted to dig her own grave, that was fine by me. I was friends with Boss Lady, and we would hang out and often hung out on the weekends, and we worked Saturdays together, which meant we would go out on Friday nights, we would drink, and work the next day hungover. Oh, to be young. I would only go out during the weekends and never missed a day of work, no matter how hungover I was, and Saturdays were the only days I would be hungover. Besides school and work, I was in a dance company and had dance classes every day, mostly after 7 p.m., but a few days I had them earlier and couldn't work no matter what. This is important. Every night we would count the register, leave $100 in change and small bills for the next day, and deposit the rest in a safe at the mall. I'm not entirely sure because it's been a long time, but I do believe Boss Lady would tell us to take the difference out of the $100 for the register, somehow believing the money would magically show up the next day. After a while, we started having problems with the distributors. We were not allowed to order on credit and had to go to the bank to pay the bills in person, etc. After that, things started getting really weird, and Boss Lady refused to let us make the cash deposits at night, insisting that we put the money bags in one of the cabinets inside the shop, which after a month or two culminated to a lot of cash. We had also had trouble a few months with getting paid on time. Since I worked the most out of all of the part-timers, I had the biggest salary, and the people who administered pay decided to pay the smaller checks first. This girl had bills to pay, so that did not sit well with me. I was also the hardest worker out of us all, Boss Lady included. Then one lovely Tuesday while I was at school, one of the other part-timers asked me to cover her shift, to which I said I wasn't able to because not only did I have back-to-back dance classes, I also had a paper to write for school. Later that night, I got a text from the girl saying, "If you were hungover, you could have just said so. You don't have to lie." And I'm like, "Excuse me? I don't drink on school nights, and there's no way I would have had the time to do so last night with dance class right after work and working on my paper." To which she just answered, "Yeah, sure. Boss Lady told me you were out last night." The funny part is, this was a fairly small town, so there's nowhere to go on weeknights. So even if I wanted to break my own rules and party on a school night, I couldn't. This really upset me, and I figured I would stop playing nice and saving Boss Lady. Cue the revenge. One day out of the blue during summer, Boss Lady declared she was going to go on a last-minute 2-week vacation to the States and told me to take care of the shop while she was gone. I said fine, but would like more notice next time. I also asked her how she paid for it, considering she wasn't able to take out any salary from the shop, and she just said, "Oh, I had some savings." I just thought, that's weird, considering you actually don't make money, but didn't say anything. The first day I was in charge, headquarters called, and the conversation went like this. Headquarters. Hey, is boss lady around? Me. No, she took a last-minute vacation to the States and put me in charge. Didn't she tell you? Headquarters. No, she did not indulge that information. But maybe you can help me. Do you know what happened to all the cash deposits from the past few months? Me. Yeah, they're in one of the cabinets here. Boss lady told us not to deposit them. She even yelled at me when I was about to, because I felt really uncomfortable knowing we had what must have been more than $15,000 lying around in the shop, and gave me an excuse about having to look them over. Headquarters. Are you serious? Me. Sure am. What should I do? I know the previous owner is in town. Maybe you can call her and ask if she can come help you. She knows what's what, and please deposit all the cash today. Me. Sure, no problem. I'll look over all the cash bags to see how much there actually is and make sure they're all there and deposit them ASAP. And we hung up. I called the old owner and told her what was up, and she sounded really surprised and was there within 10 minutes. Together, we quickly looked over all the cash but didn't count it. They were in these little pouches that had a form at the front where you filled in how many of each bill and coin was in it, so we figured the right amount would be in each bag. They weren't sealed because boss lady had told us not to seal them before putting them in the cabinet. I then put them all in a bag and discreetly made my way over to the safe where we deposited them. It was on the other side of the mall, and the mall was open, so my heart was racing. I felt like everyone knew I was carrying a load of cash. The old owner started asking me if we kept up with the cleaning requirements, and I answered truthfully that boss lady never told us to do any of the time-consuming stuff, like the ice cube machine, saying that we would have to do that after closing and she didn't have the money to pay us for the extra hours, so she said she would do it on the weekends herself. Old owner just shrugged and told me she had to leave. Since I was all alone in the shop and it was fairly quiet, I started looking around for things to clean. This was around 4 p.m. I quickly realized that she had never cleaned anything like she said she had. Under the fridges and workbench, there were layers of dirt. The water tank in the ice cube machine was green with algae. The cooling fans in the refrigerators were covered in mold. I started cleaning, but quickly realized this would require my full attention, so I closed the shop early. I called the old owner and she supported my decision and called the mall manager for me to let them know what was up. I have never cleaned that much in my life. I scrubbed everything. I pulled all the refrigerators out and scrubbed thoroughly behind everything. What took the longest was the ice cube machine. I wasn't done until 11 p.m. that night. Being the petty jerk I am, and being upset boss lady went on vacation with the shop in the state it was, I took pictures of everything before I started cleaning and sent them all to the food safety agency, telling them that nothing had been cleaned for over a year. I also got to clock all the hours I spent cleaning, getting an okay from headquarters. Looking back now and seeing how little I was paid, I would have just not cared, but at the time I was afraid people would get sick from eating the food. The next day, I called the old owner and all the part-timers, asking them to meet at my place, saying we needed a staff meeting without boss lady, and now was the chance. They all came and we started talking, telling me what boss lady had done when they were working together and other things that they had observed her doing. I took notes, and later that night, I wrote a 7-page document listing all of the things she knew she did wrong and how we suspected she was stealing money from the shop, etc., and I emailed it directly to headquarters. He emailed me back saying he would look into it. Headquarters called me a few days later, thanking me for notifying him about all of the things she was doing and told me that when the cash was registered, the amount listed on the form and the amount in the pouches weren't the same, and asked me if I knew where it had gone. A light went off, and I realized the savings boss lady had used to pay for her trip was actually money she had taken from the pouches, and that's why she wouldn't let us seal them. I told him as much, and he said he would dig a little. When boss lady came back from vacation, she seemed very stressed. I acted like nothing had happened when she was gone, but chuckled when she opened the cash cabinet and saw that all the money was gone, and her face turned so white she was almost see-through, but she said nothing. She was in the back most of the day on her phone and came out asking me if I could cover for her the next few days as she had to go to headquarters for a last-minute meeting. Headquarters was 8 hours away. I agreed and went home. Over the next few days, I was seething with excitement to find out what had happened. When she came back, she tried to play it cool and said, "I've decided to quit. I feel like doing something different, so I'm just working until the end of the month, and then I'm leaving." And I just acted sorry and oblivious. I knew the old owner was kept in the loop by headquarters, and she told me what had really happened. Boss lady had met with headquarters, who had questioned her about the missing money and lack of cleaning, etc. There was more, but this is already longer than the Bible. She had denied it all at first, trying to pin it on us, and saying she had suspected someone was stealing the money and that's why she didn't deposit it, etc., but eventually broke down and admitted it all. She was then given the option of quitting and paying them back all the missing money in installments or having charges pressed against her. She obviously chose the former. Personally, I would have pressed charges no matter what, but they wanted to help her out because I guess they understood she was in a bit of a tough situation with not making any money at the shop and also didn't want it to blow up in the media. I kept working there for a few months, but quit because I found a job that paid more. Word spread about what boss lady had done, so she really struggled to find a new job to pay what she owed, since no one trusted her. She eventually did, but had to pay them back for several years later. We did not keep in touch. Guess she shouldn't have lied about me to my coworkers. Have you ever had a boss who you knew was doing something wrong? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. Tell me to eat somewhere else? Okay, you will regret this. So about a year ago, in late June, I started working for a resort restaurant that also manages one of the main pools and pool bars next door. I hadn't worked in a restaurant environment beforehand, which my previous boss knew. So a few weeks after I was hired, he started scheduling me to work by the pool bar, saying it'd be an easy way for me to adjust to the job and learn new skills. He ended up being right, because I ended up learning how to be a server, just by helping out the guests lounging by the pool and the bartenders I worked with. One of the bartenders was a lady named Kiki, who will be important later in the story. Did I mention I worked outside? Let's just say I have crazy respect for those who work outside all day during the summer. It was always hot and humid where I worked, and we didn't have many methods of staying cool. I also wasn't exactly adjusted to being on my feet 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, so my legs and feet were in pain a lot of the time. My shifts always started at 11 a.m. with lunch rush starting about half an hour afterwards, right on the dot. Orders would fly into the bar and out to their tables for nearly 2 hours, finally slowing to a stop at around 2 p.m. I'd always chosen to take my lunch break, which I'm allowed to do, at this time inside the building because I'm irritable in many ways and need to recharge. At the resort I work at, there isn't really a such thing as a break room. If employees want to eat, their only options are either to eat at their stations/offices, eat at whatever fast food place they had time to go to, or eat at the employee lunchroom at the back of the main building. The bar didn't really have a place to eat where you weren't in the way or seen by customers, so I'd always choose to eat at the lunchroom. It offered free food for the staff, a place to sit, and AC, all of which I desperately needed during my break. So whenever I finished dealing with the lunch rush at the pool, which normally ended around 2 p.m., I'd go to the lunchroom, make a plate, and sit down and start eating and watch videos until my break was over. Well, one day, that suddenly changed. I came to the lunchroom a little later than usual one day, and the room was vacant aside from a few ladies cleaning the floors and tables. One of the ladies, who I'll call Lunch Lady, noticed me appear in the doorway, and before I could say or do anything, she exclaimed, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're closed." I kind of jumped a little because it came as a surprise and apologized before kindly asking if I could still maybe eat there just for a few minutes. She refused, repeating that, "The lunchroom is closed, and I'm not allowed to let anyone in here until we reopen at 4. It was 2 p.m. at the time, and if I wanted to eat, I could make a plate and take it to my office like everyone else does. I shyly explained that I worked outside by the bar, that it's difficult for me to eat outside. I get nauseous in the afternoon, and I don't know where else I could go. I asked again, even adding that I'd clean up after myself and only need a few minutes. She again refused, said that I should have come earlier, and then said I could sit at a table in the hallway if I really needed a place to eat. I politely declined, to which she responded, "Well, I'm sorry, but I can't let you eat here. You can eat anywhere else but here. If I made an exception for one person, I'd have to do it for everyone, and then I'd get in trouble. Do you understand?" I just quietly nodded and excused myself. I'm really not a confrontational person and would rather crawl into a rock than argue with someone. And at the time, she did say it was a rule, so what was I going to do about it? I ended up talking to a few of the servers I worked with, and one told a story about a confrontation she had with a lunch lady the other day. She explained how she wasn't feeling well and wanted to rest in the lunchroom for a moment, just to calm down and relax, but was completely denied by lunch lady. She explained how she didn't have anywhere else to go, and it would only be for a moment, but lunch lady kept insisting it was against the rules even when the server started tearing up. So it was pretty clear I wasn't going to argue. I didn't think to talk to my bosses about it either because, in my mind, they'd probably just tell me that they can't do anything about it and I should just go there earlier too. So I tried my best to get there on time, but due to the lunch rush, I wasn't always so lucky. Most times I was too late, but other times, even when I was on time, they'd kick us out right at 2 p.m., whether we were finished or not. I tried for weeks to get there at a decent time, but wasn't so lucky. So I thought, well, she said I could eat anywhere, right? I've seen employees eat wherever they wanted to, even in storage rooms. So I thought wherever I chose wouldn't matter, right? So I found a comfy secluded wooden bench in the female employee bathroom. To be more accurate though, it was the locker room the bench was in, but that locker room was connected to the bathroom, so everyone considered it to be the bathroom. I really didn't care too much, as long as not many people saw me, which during 2 p.m. was pretty common. Even when people did see me, no one asked. For the first few months I worked, I didn't really talk to much of the staff outside my department, so most people who saw me ignored me. I did this for about a month before someone finally noticed. This is when Kiki appears in the story. Up to this point, I always felt somewhat intimidated by her because she always looked frustrated and she didn't look too patient with her new hires. But after this, I started realizing that on the inside, she's a kind of motherly woman who is only stressed out because of her job. Kiki was heading to the bathroom and was just passing by the bench I was sitting at before she noticed me, then the plate of food on my lap. She stopped in her tracks and her expression turned from tired focus to a bizarre kind of confusion. "What are you doing?" she asked in a quiet, confused voice. "Eating lunch," I replied casually. "Why are you eating here? Why not eat in the lunchroom?" I explained the conversation I had with Lunch Lady and what she told me. Kiki's face got red. It was red already, but now it was visibly getting redder and redder like a sunburn slapped her face. I noticed this along with the awkward silence and added that, "I'm okay with this though. I've done it for a few weeks already." That wasn't the best thing to say because she said, "No, this isn't okay. Pick up your stuff and we're going to talk to this lady." I sheepishly did as I was told and just followed her. Lunch Lady was there, as she always was, cleaning up a dark lunchroom on her own, and we came around the corner. Kiki started arguing with her about why she wouldn't let one person into the lunchroom, why she wouldn't even compromise, how the rules are crud, and then said, "Did you even know that this girl was eating in the bathroom for a month because you told her that she couldn't eat here?" Lunch Lady's face looked like a mixture of confusion, shock, and pity, but she kept explaining that, "If I made one exception, I'd have to make more." Kiki then noticed two things. The first was that the lunchroom was completely dark and almost empty aside from one lady in the corner, which was the second thing she noticed. No one was really lining up to get into the closed and dark lunchroom. The lady was on her phone, but then started looking over at us as the conversation continued. "What's the problem with letting one person eat here for just 30 minutes? We're both working outside and we deserve some time inside. So why can't you make an exception here? If cleaning is the issue, then she," referring to me, "can clean up after herself. She's clearly old enough to know how to do it, 22 at the time. And you've already got one person in here already. So what's the harm in one more?" Lunch Lady was about to argue again until the lady in the corner chimed in. "It's okay, Lunch Lady. She's free to sit in here and eat." So that's what I did. I sat, ate, talked to the lady in the corner, cleaned, and left when I was done. The lady who was there turned out to be one of the managers of the resort, and she was very nice and warm to me. The next day, I wasn't turned away. Or the next day. Or the next week. I was never told to eat anywhere else again after that. Lunch Lady, who used to patrol the room long after it closed, wasn't there as much anymore after that. She wasn't fired, as I saw her much later, but I suspect management decided to adjust the rules. I didn't need to go there after summer had ended and the pool bar closed, so I never found out how much had changed. I still find it funny how I just followed the rules, not trying to be malicious, and ended up proving a point regardless. I'm a bit more comfortable with confrontation than I was before now. The best breath I ever took. So I went to my old job today to handle some business, not related to work at all, because they're the closest place I could go to deal with what needed to be done. I walk in and handle my business, chatting with the only ex-coworker I still talk to. My old manager comes out when she hears I'm there and greets me in her sickeningly sweet voice that's so fake it hurts. Now, before I share the conversation, here's some backstory. The company provides handouts, flyers, and signage for all sales and promotions. However, once my manager found out how skilled I am in design, she would have me create personalized promotion materials for our store. Not to toot my own horn too much, but they were quite successful. To make everyone's life easier, I created multiple files that needed extremely simple edits that could be used for just about any occasion. So if I was not in when they were needed, anyone could make the changes. I also made files for personal touches, like thank yous to customers for using our services that were made for weddings, birthdays, funerals, etc. All in, I had made roughly 50 files for these uses. They were my personal creations that were in no way tied to the company, and in truth, I believe the company forbade stores from doing such things since they gave us promotional materials approved for use. I was never given any credit for my work, and was even told to my face during my review that netted me a lovely 1% raise, company average was 5%, that my work was nothing that she or someone else couldn't have done, so it didn't justify a raise. So here's the conversation as it transpired. Manager will be known as Karen. Karen: "Hey, Thunder Sir 3D, long time no see." Me: "Hi, yes, it's been a while." Karen: "Well, I was gonna call you, but I didn't want to get you in trouble at your new job. I had a question for you." At this point, I'm rolling my eyes and finally fully turn to face her. "Remember all those files you made for sales and such? Well, we can't find them on the computer. We wanted to use them for such and such sale. What folder did you put them in?" Cue a huge smile under my mask. Me: "Well, as I created those files, when I left, I deleted everything that was mine from the machine." "Why would you delete them since we used them all the time?" "You made it quite clear that my work was unappreciated and nothing I did was special. As you felt that way, I didn't think you needed my files for use, since it was apparently something that anyone could do." Karen: "This is a serious problem. You deleted our work files without permission." Me: "Actually, I deleted my files. I created every last one of them. Not one was created by the company, nor were they approved for use by anyone higher than you. There's nothing wrong with me deleting anything that was made by me for my personal use. Besides, there was nothing that you or anyone else couldn't produce, right?" Stunned silence. Me: "However, if you want those files, I can give you my designer rate for each one, and you can submit them as a store expense. I'll be happy to recreate them for you once I have a paid invoice for the work. You have my number, so let me know." I said see you later to my coworker and walked out. The breath of fresh air never felt more satisfying as the door closed behind me. Entitled sister says I'm wasting our mom's money even though it's mine. My older sister, the entitled person, she's 28, has always had something against me, 17, female. She's always said that I'm the favorite child and that I'm a spoiled brat. She thinks I'm the favorite because our mom and I are always doing stuff together, like watching movies and TV shows and going out to big shopping centers together, and saying I'm a brat because I have all these new clothes, I'm a cosplayer, and how that's wasting all mom's money. 1. Mom and I are always doing stuff together because we have common interests, and she's made the effort to watch some anime with me because I think she might enjoy a certain show. 2. I have in total maybe 20 cosplay items, counting wigs and uniforms and all that. And out of all of it, Mom only bought me 3 or 4 things even after I insisted that I pay. 3. The money I get is all from saving up cans. Yes, those 10 cents all go towards my hobby that I'm very passionate about, and Mom totally supports me because she sees how happy it makes me and will be there if I ever need any help. But when my sister was my age, she would be distant from the family and treat Mom with such disrespect. Even now, she continues to boss Mom around and even started stealing from me. A couple months ago, she stole around 7 bags of cans, which would have been $50 to $60, which isn't much to some people, but for me, that was a huge dent in my allowance of getting my cosplays. Mom has tried talking to her about it, but she keeps seeing her actions as okay. She's done worse things throughout my life, but this post is already long enough. After all she's done, I've just started distancing myself from her. What should I even do about her? Edit. First of all, thank you to everyone that gave me some advice. I really appreciate it. I've been trying to avoid my sister, and it's kinda easy since she moved out. The thing is, she's always like this, even though she has 2 kids and a wedding to worry about instead of her little sister. Reminder, my sister and her fiance both have stable jobs and don't have any money struggles. Meanwhile, I'm still unemployed with no income at all. I know that there's the chance that she might have needed a couple extra bucks, but seriously? Stealing from her little sister? How I get my cans is saving up from home and sometimes walking all around my town with big bin bags to pick up all of the stray cans, bottles, etc. And I have tried talking to Mom about it, and she's still a pushover for my sister. A few years back, my sister was the queen bee of the house and always bossing poor Mom around, saying that she had to do this and can't do that. Mom's still kind of like that, but I told her that she doesn't have to keep asking me if she can do stuff, but she forgets. Recently, my sister found my TikTok account and started yelling at me about how I'm a spoiled brat and how I have it easy, even though she knows my bad past and that I hate getting stuff in general because I've grown the mentality that I don't deserve it at all because of her. This caused me to have a panic attack and delete all my videos, which I highly regret now. But I've started cosplaying and uploading again. I saw that someone said I should do something with her so we can have even ground. Thanks, but it won't work. My sister judges every little thing about me. I can't like or do the smallest things without having her say something about it. Example, when my sister was younger, she was into Sailor Moon, but grew out of it. Then I found the old anime, and it's my favorite and my comfort show. She says that liking it and anime in general is stupid and childish. Even though her fiance is into anime, I want to have a good relationship with my sister since I've been separated from my family for a long time, and I just want to be like a normal family. But even if my sister is like this, I still have a pretty great relationship with my mom and older brother, both of whom I'd call my best friends. No, my coffee is always free. This happened about 7 years ago when I was working at the local convenience store. We've got the crazy lady and we've got the coworker. I got in around my normal 11 p.m. time and settled in for a slow night of training with my coworker who was on his last day with the company. Things were quiet and going pretty smoothly until around 1 a.m. Steve and I were jamming to some classic rock, but turned it off when Karen enters. A small, frail-looking lady in about 20 jackets comes in carrying a duffel bag. She set the bag next to a shelf, which sat behind the register. I couldn't see the bag, so at first I didn't even notice it was behind me. Karen went straight to the self-serve coffee and pulled out a coffee mug from underneath one of her jackets. She seemed out of it, talking to herself and muttering under her breath, but I'd be out of it too at 1 a.m., so I let Karen just do her thing. Until her bag starts to bark. I'm confused as heck, since I hadn't seen her place down the bag and certainly didn't think there would be a dog inside. My coworker lets Karen know that we don't allow animals inside the store and she'll have to take him outside. This is as close as I can remember to what was said. Karen: "But I don't have a dog." Coworker: "Lady, we can hear it barking. It wants out of the duffel bag." "I'll let it out, but it's not my dog, just my bag." Coworker: "Well, regardless of who owns the dog, you brought it in, so you'll have to take it out." "Fine, I'll just take my coffee and go then, since you don't want me here." "Okay, so it'll be $1.50 for the coffee refill. Thanks for understanding." At this point, I can see Karen shaking with rage. Her eyes may have well rolled back into her head. "No, my coffee is always free." Steve: "No, it's not. All refills of drip coffee are $1.50. "But he said I could have it for free." "Take it up with the big man, not me. I get mine for free." Coworker: "Who are you talking about? There's just been my coworker and I." "What big man?" "I don't want to say. That man upstairs. He told me." Coworker: "Lady, this is a one-floor building. We don't have an upstairs." God told me in a dream that I could come here and always have free refills. Are you going to tell God no?" At this point, my coworker had enough and told her just to go. But if she came back, we would call the police on her. I never saw her again. Well, in that store anyway. Dog seemed fine when she took it out of the duffel bag. It was a small Pomeranian. Karen calls me out for being pregnant to teach her daughter a lesson. Pregnant me walks into a convenience store and I go to wait in line behind a teenager and her entitled mother. I vaguely hear the mom whispering to her daughter and looking back at me, but just like any good city person, I'm completely minding my own business. Until the woman turns around to me and starts to point at my belly and tell me how I need to tell her daughter how embarrassing it is and how hard it is to be a teenage mom with no father for your baby. Wasn't wearing a ring at this stage, fat fingers. Or maybe she was just assuming that too. How my life is ruined because of what I did and how I won't get to go to school. "Tell her what mistakes you have made to get yourself in this kind of trouble," she tells me. She looks back at her daughter and says, "You don't want to end up like her, do you?" None of it makes me mad, just annoyed. Maybe at the same time flattered because she thinks my pregnant self is a teenager, but more annoyed by the condescending tone of her voice and the audacity that she would confront a teenager like that and embarrass her kid. She has been done checking out at this point, but I guess was waiting for an actual response. I was fully prepared to ignore her, and typically I probably would walk right by and not engage, but pregnancy leaves you with less patience. I look at the girl and tell her that her mom's advice is pretty solid. You don't want to get pregnant as a teen. I'm sure it isn't fun, especially when some people are really judgmental and would be trashy enough to condemn you for it. But since I'm a 30-year-old, I upped my age a little and was happily married. I didn't really feel embarrassed by it. Not as embarrassed as your mom should be for making a jerk of herself for assuming. Did a slight stare down at her mom as I walked past them and out of the store. My daughter is now 12, and I still laugh at this story with people. I wish I had a wittier retort, but my brain froze for a minute, even trying to comprehend what the lady was talking about. Am I the jerk for humiliating a man and his entire family when he proposed to me? I, 28 female, came from a very traditional Indian family. I left them when I came to the US for uni because I knew that if I accepted their help in paying my fees, they would hold it against me later. And I got a part-time job along with the financial aid I was receiving. I maintained low contact and didn't visit them in person until I was 26, when they contacted me on my younger brother passing uni. For the past 2 years, I visited them 4 times, and each time they've been talking about marriage, although I stated very clearly that I wasn't interested. They brought up kids and how finding guys willing to marry older women was hard. I said no problem because I'm child-free and I don't need/want them to find a guy for me. January this year, I went to visit them and they said that they had something special for me and that I would absolutely love it. The day after I reached their home, they said that they were throwing me a welcome home party. I thought that they were trying to fix our relationship and I just let it be. They invited a lot of people and it had obviously already been planned. An hour in, my parents introduced me to a man in his 30s, F, and his parents. So next thing I know, F goes down on one knee and whips out a beautiful ring. I'm surprised and angry at my parents for still trying to control my life and putting me in such a situation. I said no, but then our parents began to push my buttons and I exploded. I called him, his parents, and my parents lowlifes for trying to trick me and basically insulted their views, calling them disgusting. Told them to go forget themselves and I left. I packed my bags and went to stay at a hotel until it was time for my flight. My mom cried and begged me to stay and said that they had already paid for half of the dowry and ring. I stopped responding to my parents' calls and texts because I was done with them. My cousins and some old friends have been telling me that I was being unfair by being so rude to F and his parents. Thing is, they were in on it. They expected me to say yes and sent me a lot of insults when I refused to reconsider. They were humiliated, and in their tiny group of small-minded people, my parents were being ostracized for raising me. F and his parents were also humiliated because they were rejected by me. Am I the jerk for being so rude? I feel like I should have handled the situation more delicately rather than blowing up at all of them. Edit. Wow, I did not expect so many not the jerk responses. When I said that they were in on it, I meant that my parents had told them that I hadn't met the right guy and that I would come around, which is why they kept trying. My parents expected me to surrender all my savings and money to F, live with him and his family in India, procreate with him 3 times, and do all of the housework when I can't even make a poached egg. About letting me go to college, I told them 2 weeks before leaving for it, and I lived at my friend's house with all of my important documents because I knew that they would do pretty much anything to keep me from going. They called my uni and said that I wouldn't be joining. Uni contacted me and I cleared it up. That's why I didn't talk to them and declined to let them pay. For those of you who have told me to wear a faux ring, I'm engaged to my girlfriend of 5 years and my parents aren't getting an invite to any wedding. Thank you for your responses, and I am never talking to my parents again. Entitled mom can't accept that her 3-year-old isn't a prodigy. Last week I started a job as a teacher. Perfect ground for finding entitled parents. Here's some background to start off with. I teach English to children, and while the school accepts kids between 18 months and 12 years, my students are between the ages of 2 and 5. The school I work at only teaches English and has different levels based on your kid's ability, where the teacher can use discretion to decide if the kid can go faster or needs to slow down. Because of everything going on, the school also has mostly one-on-one lessons now, but because things are getting better where I am, the school also allows physical classes instead of online-only classes. I have this kid, we'll call him D. He's a 3-year-old boy with a local Chinese father and a mother who is traditionally Chinese. Where I live, English is the primary language of most people, though the command of English is a little skewed with plenty of slang. D's father could speak in Mandarin to his wife, our entitled mom. Entitled mom, however, could not speak any English at all and was Mandarin speaking only. This is where problem number 1 is. While I am local Chinese, I only grew up with English-speaking parents and grandparents, which meant I have almost no command of Mandarin, even though I studied it as a second language for 12 years. Once I was out of school, my brain wrung out any knowledge of Mandarin like water out of a sponge. I can speak it at a barely conversational level, but can't explain anything in depth. The second lesson D came for was also my first day working there. While I was briefed on Entitled Mom, as she had been the one to sign D up for the lessons, I was informed by my coworker that D's father would be the one dropping him off and picking him up. This was good news for me, because when we let the kid go at the end of our lesson, we take a few minutes to go through with the parents and guardians on what the kid learned, what they did well, and what they can improve on, along with any recommendations for them, like speeding up or slowing down. It's hard for me to explain any of that in Mandarin, so if D's father was the one coming to pick him up, then talking to him was simple. Unfortunately for me, that was absolutely not the case. On D's first lesson with me, Entitled Mom was the one to drop him off. He's only 3 years old, so we were doing a foundation class with him where we basically teach him one letter per hour-long class, how to say it and write it, what sound the letter makes, and some simple words that start with said letter. Given that that was his first time seeing me, he was almost entirely unresponsive to anything I said. He kept trying to go out and find Entitled Mom, would want me to open the door, and when I wouldn't, because he couldn't just be running off, he'd try to shove his fingers in the gap in the door. He would not repeat after me or mimic my actions, and overall did not manage to learn much. I did manage to get him to say 4 words that started with the letter B, but that was about all we managed to do in that hour. For all my Southeast Asian people out there, you know how our parents can be. You also know traditional Chinese parents are even worse, and Entitled Mom was just horrid. When I let D out to go back to Entitled Mom, she was at first cordial, asking how he did in the class and what he learned. I explained to her that because this was D's first lesson with me, he wasn't as responsive, but that he did manage to say 4 words that I taught him. Now, during classes, we have 4 flashcards with the phrases they're supposed to learn, and we give these cards to the parents to keep in case they want to revise with their kid at home. I prefer to give these cards to the kids to hold to reinforce that it's their responsibility to keep the cards safe. Plus, it helps them develop their motor skills when they have to hold stuff. When I gave D his flashcards, Entitled Mom snatched it out of his hand and immediately pointed to the first one, Bubbles, demanding loudly for him to say the word. Since D was no longer in an environment where it was just me and him, he clammed up and wouldn't say anything. Entitled Mom saw that as my failure. Cue our first terrible conversation. You already know who Entitled Mom and the kid are, and we've got me. This conversation was in Mandarin, with me speaking in broken Mandarin. As a side note, I can understand Mandarin, but can't speak it. Another side note, parents aren't allowed to be in the classroom during lesson time. Entitled Mom, what does this card say? Her son doesn't say anything. Entitled Mom, jabbing her finger into the card. What does it say? When D doesn't respond, I get a death glare from Entitled Mom. Why doesn't he know how to say it? What do I pay you for? Me. Ma'am, since this was his first lesson with me, I think he was shy and we didn't manage to get far in the material today. I assure you that, what do I pay you for? I sent him here so he could learn English. Entitled Mom glares at her son and demands that he say Bubbles again, but he is entirely clammed up and just shakes his head. Me. Look, ma'am, you need to understand that it was his first time seeing me, and he's 3 years old. He was able to copy what I said during class and point at the pictures associated with words. Then why can't he say it? Son, tell me what this card says. Me. Possibly because we're no longer in a quiet environment where it's just him with a teacher. He should warm up to me soon within the next class or 2 and become more receptive to the lessons. I'm sorry if the class today wasn't up to your standards, but please understand it is his first time with me. Entitled Mom snorts at my command, grabs D, and walks off. I share some words with my coworkers, mostly us complaining about Entitled Mom and my mentor confirming that she was just like that during D's very first lesson at the school with her. That concluded my first time meeting Entitled Mom. But oh no, we're not quite done. Now it's time for today's lesson. She was even more horrible this time. She showed up 10 minutes late, thankfully with D's father too, and released D into my care. Today, I taught him the letter C, including the words car, cat, cow, and crab. He was a lot more receptive now that I figured out that he was more into physical actions and was able to say all 4 words, plus match the words to the pictures. The class itself was fun, but releasing him to his parents was not. Since D's dad was around, I spoke to him almost exclusively. I explained to him that D was doing well and became a lot more receptive to me in my lessons, but struggled with the penmanship since he couldn't get a good grip on a crayon and had a very light touch, so his movements were shaky. I also explained that he struggled to say car sometimes, since he mixed up how it sounded with cow, but Dee's dad was very understanding. I recommended he guide Dee on how to properly hold a pencil at home, and Dee's dad relayed all this in Mandarin to Entitled Mom. Entitled Mom looked mad at me when Dee's dad mentioned to her my comments about Dee not being able to hold a crayon properly, but said nothing. The school also gives the kid the activity book to bring home, and Dee's book today had a page with a car drawing for you to cut out. My coworker had cut out the entire page so she could cut out the car itself with ease, and the page was colored in by Dee. Entitled Mom only noticed the bit of the page that was still in the book and blew her fuse. Entitled Mom: "Where is this page? How can you give him such a terrible book, huh? Where is the page? Why did you give my son something so terribly made?" Me: "Ma'am, that page was cut out because there's a paper car cutout we needed to use. Here, the car's right here." I flipped the book over to the front page where Dee's messily colored car cutout was tucked between the cover and the first page. Entitled Mom's rage subsided a little, but she gave me the nastiest death glare. "Oh, so he couldn't even color it properly? I wonder why I'm even paying you when you can't teach him how to color a picture." Let me say, teaching kids to hold a pencil is not my job. It's the parents' duty, and if they only expect him to practice for an hour every Saturday, that's their problem. Sounds nasty, but it's true. At this point, I'm exclusively speaking to Dee's dad and barely even looking at Entitled Mom. Entitled Mom has also gone back to jabbing her finger at the flashcards, demanding that Dee say what the words are. Entitled Mom shaking the car flashcard in Dee's face. "Say it! Say what this word is!" Dee is visibly stressed, clutching his toy car and staring at Entitled Mom but saying nothing. I decide to intervene. Me, pointing at Dee's toy car in his hands. "Dee, do you know what that is?" Dee immediately flashes a big grin. "Car!" I clap for him and give him a high five, offering Entitled Mom a smile that only makes her scowl deeper. Pretty sure her muzzle lines and crow's feet are permanent now. I also notice that anytime Entitled Mom talks, Dee's dad looks at her with such tiredness in his eyes, like he's regretting his marriage now. I finish explaining to Dee's dad on my recommendations for him to practice his penmanship at home. He thanks me, while Entitled Mom grabs Dee and yanks him off. The school admin apologizes to me for even convincing Entitled Mom to sign Dee up, saying he knew she was going to be trouble during the sign-up process. I just say it's fine, pack up and leave. Now, 3 hours later, I'm sitting here writing this, thinking if Entitled Mom keeps her trash behavior up, she's going to end up with a son that hates her. Can't believe I have to see Entitled Mom every Saturday now. I hope she pulls Dee out, even though I love him dearly. Entitled Mom is just going to keep making trouble every single week and find some reason to throw a crap storm. Sorry this got so long, and thanks to everyone for reading. Being a teacher is just a great place for finding entitled moms like this, and I'm sure I'll have something new next week when I see her again. Edit. I cannot let him down now, because it's clear he won't get the love and attention he needs from Entitled Mom. I will do right by him. Love you all. Update. Entitled Mom can't accept that her 3-year-old isn't a prodigy. Part 2. The termination. Here's the cast, because today's show involves more people. We've got Dee, my 3-year-old student. We've got Entitled Mom, Chinese national, very traditional and stubborn. We've got Entitled Dad, local, very much a liar. We've got school admin, and the poor bloke that got pulled into this unintentionally. We've got coworkers 1 and 2. Coworker 1 is the manager of the outlet, while coworker 2 is a no-nonsense type lady. They're both very nice in general, but not so much to parents who try to exploit their newer staff. And we've got me, the clown that had to entertain Entitled Mom and Entitled Dad. Here we go again. First things first, Entitled Mom and Entitled Dad showed up 10 minutes late with Dee. I know this, and that Entitled Mom and Entitled Dad are both liars because I come in and out of the classroom every minute or two to check if my students are here, usually starting this routine about 5 minutes before class begins. Some parents like to drop their kids off early, so I'd rather be there to take them into my care in case they show up a few minutes early. When Entitled Mom, Entitled Dad, and Dee finally show up, Dee just starts to take off his shoes, get his temperature taken, and receive some hand sanitizer from school admin. This is all important because it proves why Entitled Mom and Entitled Dad are liars. School admin is always outside at the front desk to receive students. He'll bring students in if the teacher is inside preparing for class or tending to another student, since we're not allowed to leave any kid alone at any given point. If Dee had shown up on time, school admin would have brought him into my classroom, assuming I wasn't outside. He would also have done the temperature check and hand sanitizer when they showed up and not 10 minutes late. This proves to me that they were indeed late. Entitled Dad, Entitled Mom, and I didn't regard each other much as I took D into my care. I just had him say bye-bye to his parents, a little trick I used to reinforce that now is class time. D follows me, his parents leave, and all is good. I go about my class teaching D the letter F. D's writing and coloring has improved a lot since my last post. I taught him the command push hard when he holds a crayon, so he uses some strength when writing and coloring. He was able to do his writing and very aggressively colored a fish, even though I tried to convince him to color the fox, french fries, and frog in his book. He didn't touch any of the other drawings. His reading and pronunciation of words was roughly the same. He could say fox and fish, but not french fries or frog. I don't expect much. Consonant blending is something we usually teach 4 to 5-year-olds instead, and the FR sound can be pretty tough for a lot of kids, especially those who don't grow up in an English-speaking household. Overall, the lesson was fun, and he could even show me how a frog hops and how a fox sneaks around the forest. Heck comes when class is over. The school has a policy where even if the student comes late, lessons end on time. You do not get an extension to ensure that your kid has a full hour class. If you're late, it's your problem. You do not get to push back other students' classes or the teacher's plans after work because you couldn't show up on time. I help D pack up and take him outside 5 minutes before his lesson ends, a protocol that gives the teacher time to talk to the parents and give feedback. When his parents aren't there, I suspect they're going to come late again, as they pulled the exact same thing last week when they dropped D off late and came back late, holding me back from clocking out. Coworker 2 is outside at the front desk as well, sending a kid off with his parents. When she's done, I casually mention that I'm probably going to be stuck outside for another 15 minutes. Me. Wish I could go back inside. I'm probably going to be stuck out here for a while. Coworker 2. What? Why? Isn't your lesson over? Me. Yeah, but D's parents are probably going to come pick him up late. They did the exact same thing last week, came 15 minutes late for class, and thought I'd still give them a full hour lesson. Coworker 2. That's not right. Let me call them. You don't need to extend the class because they're late. Coworker 2 calls Entitled Dad and lets him know that class is over and I'm waiting with D. When she's done with the call, she mentions to me that Entitled Dad claimed they weren't late and that I was the one who was late in receiving them. Coworker 2 already suspects they're lying since she knows I check outside for my students before my class even begins and tells me that if they try to keep me, to mention that I have another online class that I need to go to, so they'll buzz off. Coworker 2 goes back in and I keep waiting. 10 minutes later, Entitled Dad and Entitled Mom show up. D runs to them and gives Entitled Mom a hug while I start to speak to Entitled Dad. I'm about to give the lesson report so I can just finish up and go home when he cuts me off. Me. Hi sir, sorry about calling you. So today, D learned Entitled Dad. Hey, what was this about us being late for class? We weren't late. We were standing right here. You were the one who was late in receiving us. Me. I'm sorry, sir. I've been coming in and out every minute or so since 5 minutes before class began to check if you were here. I never saw you. I apologize if you were perhaps further down and I did not see you. Entitled Dad. This is ridiculous. We were standing here. No one came to receive us. Me. Sir, I can assure you I was coming in and out and checking frequently. I did not see any of you out here on time. At this point, school admin is coming back from buying his lunch. Entitled Dad stops him and admin looks very confused. Note that admin's lunch begins halfway through my lesson, so he was definitely at the front desk before and when my lesson began. Entitled Dad. Hey, you saw us standing here, right? We were here on time. The teacher failed to come receive us on time. Admin. Sorry, sir. I didn't see any of you. I would have brought your kid in if OP wasn't outside to receive you. Sorry, I need to eat. Admin excuses himself from the inferno I'm desperately wanting to raise against these fools. I want to just move past it, give the lesson report, and go home. But Entitled Dad decides he's not done. He has no idea what he's talking about. It was another guy who saw us then. Me. Sir, he's the only male staff we have on Saturday. You couldn't have seen another male staff behind the counter. But it's okay. I apologize. It's on me this time. I must have missed you if you were here on time. Anyway, here's the lesson report. I deliver my report showing Entitled Dad that D could write and was more enthusiastic in his coloring. Entitled Dad notices that none of the other pictures are colored except for the fish. Why didn't he color them? Me. I repeatedly asked him to color, but he just kept coming back to the fish. This isn't a bad thing. It just shows that he has an interest in one thing over another. He was also able to write better, even though I still have to push down his hand and guide him in using more strength when writing. I show Entitled Dad the book and mention that it isn't finished because I tried to focus more on arts and crafts to see if D would catch on to that. I made him a paper circlet with fox ears he colored in and was wearing. Us teachers don't have to make our students finish the book since it is our discretion as to how fast the class should go. Most parents prefer it so they can see that something was accomplished, but most parents understand when we explain that they weren't into it that day. Entitled Dad has very little reaction, so I continue and mention that the lesson reports are now all digital. We used to use a hard copy, a sheet of paper we ticked off and had the parents keep. However, we've since decided to switch to our online reports, so it's all done on an iPad on our teacher's portal and the parents are emailed a copy. As I'm clicking around on the iPad and filling out my report, Entitled Mom buzzes over to me and gets uncomfortably close to me. She's leaning over my shoulder to see what I'm doing, though I'm pretty sure it was useless because she couldn't read English. I also have no idea why she wanted to lean so far over me. It's not like I'm tall. I'm 159 centimeters, 5'2", and she's at least 167 centimeters, 5'6", in heels, so there was really no reason for her to peer over my shoulder like that. Once I'm done with the report, I turn the iPad around in my hands so Entitled Dad can read it. Instead of just reading it, he grabs the iPad out of my hands instead, almost making me drop the book and flashcards I was also holding. Entitled Mom snorts in contempt as I quickly grab D's stuff so nothing would fall. Once Entitled Dad is done reading the report, he shoves it back in my face so I can submit it. I pretend to be cordial, say goodbye, give D a genuine wave and a high five, and head back inside to grab my stuff and go home. I would have just left right then and there, but admin asked me what was up and to fill him in. I relay the entire crap show to him and he laughs, though he mentions Entitled Mom and Entitled Dad were probably lying about being on time. I mention that it isn't the first time they've done it, but the conversation moves along to other things unrelated to Entitled Mom and Entitled Dad. About 5 minutes after I've gone back inside, I say goodbye to admin and leave the room so I can head back to the classroom, pack up for my next teacher, and scram. When I open the door, I'm face to face with Entitled Mom. We're inside the school area, and she's in her shoes. Great. Sorry to the cleaner who has to clean the floor in extra time because one jerk wouldn't take off her shoes. Me. Hi, ma'am. Can I help you? Entitled Mom in broken English. Yeah, go outside. I want to talk to you. Yep, she said it exactly like that. Understandable, she doesn't speak English. I internally groan, roll my eyes at her back, and follow her out, where Entitled Dad and D are standing. I go up to Entitled Dad and ask what I can do for him, and then comes the phrase that made me thrive. No, not asking to see the manager. Entitled Dad. I want to terminate D's classes. Bingo! As much as I love D, I cannot handle his parents. And for the record, I never once suggested they terminate classes. This was purely out of their own choice, as I've been nothing but cordial, if not pleasant to them. Me. I'll bring admin out to see you through the process. I head back inside and tell admin, who's still eating his lunch. Sorry, man. Hope I didn't interrupt your pinto bean quinoa salad time. That Entitled Dad and Entitled Mom want to cancel these classes. He stares at me and tells me to tell coworker 1 since he isn't really authorized to cancel classes. I go to coworker 1 and tell her about it. Me. Hey, coworker 1. Entitled Dad wants to cancel these classes. Coworker 1. Really? Why? Whose student is that? Me. Mine. I don't know. I guess they've had enough of me. Coworker 1 goes outside to talk to Entitled Mom and Entitled Dad while I go back into my classroom to pack up. I hang around, texting my mom about it all before finally grabbing my bag and leaving. As I'm out of my classroom, coworker 2 asks how it went. I tell her all about it, and her disdain for Entitled Dad and Entitled Mom is clear as a cloudless day. Coworker 1 comes back inside and looks to coworker 2. She says, Coworker 2, please come help me. Worker 2. Why? Worker 1. Entitled Dad wants to terminate classes for D, but this is only his 5th lesson. He wants a full refund back. Coworker 2. Didn't the contract they signed say that fees are non-refundable? Do you want me to come help you? Did you tell them that you're the manager? Worker 1. I just say I'm a teacher. OP, who did you say I was? Me. I didn't tell them anything. I said I'd find the admin to start the process, went to admin, and he told me to find you, so I came to you. Worker 1. Oh, okay, good. Worker 2. Aren't they aware that most students don't adjust for a few months? So what if the kid can't read perfectly? He's going to need some time to pick up. Worker 1. I told them that, but they were adamant about terminating classes. Just come out here and help me. Worker 2 in her big mama voice. All right, I got this. Worker 2 goes out to the front desk. I ask Worker 1 what went on outside, and she tells me Entitled Dad and Entitled Mom were demanding a full refund even for the classes they already had. I'd understand wanting a refund for the classes they paid for but didn't have, but demanding a refund for the ones they had? Typical. I asked coworker 1 to keep me updated on whether Entitled Dad and Entitled Mom terminate classes, and that if they do, to let me know if a Sunday 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. class opens up so I don't lose out on my pay. I grab my stuff, shove my earpieces in, and go home. So far, I haven't heard from coworker 1 over text yet. At least, if they don't terminate classes, they'll at least request a new teacher. I love D very much, but his parents drive me crazy. Seems like they drive just about every other teacher crazy too. I'll leave an update in the comments on whether D's classes are terminated or if they find another teacher. Thanks for reading, and please never be like this. Update. Coworker 1 called me to ask how things were. D's course has been terminated, but the school is trying to convince Entitled Mom and Entitled Dad to come back. If they do, they'll receive a different teacher, so I don't need to interact with Entitled Mom and Entitled Dad anymore. Jerk manager gets his comeuppance. Entirely too many years ago, I started to work at a fast food company. Let's call it Southern State Not Baked Poultry. Southern State Not Baked Poultry wasn't a bad first job. I was 16, and the assistant manager at that location was my best friend's stepdad, so we took what was tedious and menial and tried to make it fun. He was actually a really good manager and genuinely cared about the people who worked for him. We would do silly stuff before the store opened while we were doing prep. We would have music playing loudly from his office. As long as everything got done and done well, he really didn't care if we had fun doing it. We'll call him Larry. This story is not about him though. This story is about our store manager. We'll call him Tim. Tim was the exact opposite of our assistant manager. Everything had to be taken seriously. Fun was outlawed. I genuinely hated working with Tim. Tim was an egocentric, power-hungry, petty little man with delusions of grandeur because he was a manager for Southern State Not Baked Poultry. Tim's approach to managing was to work the employees until they burned out. When they did, fire them and hire someone else. Needless to say, morale when Tim worked was in the garbage. Tim hated that crews would prefer working with Larry instead of him. He hated that crews had fun when Larry was working. He hated that our store's numbers were always better when Larry worked. Mostly, he just hated everyone. But one thing that he absolutely hated was a silly little thing Larry did. If it was before the restaurant opened, he would stick his tongue between his teeth and lower lip and shout out a "Hi, name" to whichever employee had just walked in. It sounded absolutely ridiculous. I would always do the same thing back, which ended up sounding like, "Hi, Larry." A perfect example of what a jerk Tim was is this. There was a young lady who, due to a variety of stressors, hurt herself after a particularly grueling shift working with Tim. After she had recovered, she came back for her last paycheck and Larry was working. Not a coincidence. She called the store to find out what day he was working. So Larry set her down in the lobby, bought her lunch, brought her last checkout, and sat and talked with her for about an hour. It was after the lunch rush and he had the time, so he made sure she was doing okay now, talked about whatever she wanted to talk about. By the time she left, she was smiling, but had tears on her cheeks. She had never had someone just sit and listen and let her talk about anything that was going on. Well, the next day, Tim had come in and hauled Larry into the office. His words, and I quote them exactly, because the office was a tiny little cube with no ceiling, just a place to stash paperwork and a computer, were, "The next time she comes in, tell her to do it right next time." So now you have a clear picture of exactly how petty and vindictive this little man was. Here is where the revenge starts. We were scheduled to have the regional and national bigwigs for Southern State Not Baked Poultry come through our area for an annual inspection. Tim had his eyes set on being one of those bigwigs, at least for the region. Why wouldn't he be? He did everything by the book. That automatically made him a good manager, at least in his eyes. Everything had a checklist and a procedure and a set of written instructions in the book. And if you couldn't meet the expectations set forth in the book, well, Tim would yell at you. Because that's how a manager manages, you see. Well, before the bigwigs got to our store, we knew what day they would be coming. Several of us had agreed that on the day they came through, we would all mess up just enough to get Tim to blow his cool. Because our regional manager and the national bigwigs all believed that Southern State Not Baked Poultry was a family company and that employees were valuable team members. The day in question arrived, and the big wigs were there for their big tour. Whoops, one of the fryers hadn't had the oil replaced last night. Oh, look, the shaker table hasn't been cleaned. Darn it, we've got way too much coleslaw made up, and we won't get through it before we have to toss it. Crap, we don't have enough poultry in the cooker to fulfill the lunch rush. Man, someone forgot to preheat the second cooker. You get the picture. After the second time I took a minute too long to get a basket of poultry into the cooker, Tim absolutely lost his crap. Yelling, throwing things. He actually physically pushed me away from the breading station in the middle of the lunch rush, while the regional manager and several bigwigs from National stood there. While we had a line several people deep at both cash registers and a lobby full of people eating, Tim stood there, gulping like a fish. His mouth was moving like he was trying to say something, but no sounds were coming out. The room was absolutely quiet other than the beeping of a fryer that was done. I looked at Tim. This was the moment we had all been gearing up for. I looked down at where he had pushed me, a set of handprints and flour on my chest, and I cut loose into him. Yelled at him that I quit, took off my apron and threw it at him. Told him I was tired of his crap, of his poor management, of how he single-handedly drove morale through the floor every time he walked through the doors, how he was a crappy excuse for a manager, and that if he didn't have Larry and a couple of good shift leads, he'd have driven the location out of business a long time ago. All the color drained from his face, and he bolted to the office cube. The national and regional folks ended up comping everyone's meals that were in the restaurant. Interestingly enough, Tim was not fired, but he was demoted to assistant manager. Larry was promoted to manager. About 10 years later, I was working at my current job as an EMT. We had just dropped a patient off at the hospital that was across the street from the same restaurant, and my partner was hungry, so we drove across the street and pulled in. Now, I hadn't set foot in that restaurant since the day I had quit, but lo and behold, who was working the counter but Tim himself, and his name tag still shows assistant manager. The restaurant was empty since it was between lunch and dinner time, and I just couldn't help myself. I stuck my tongue between my teeth and lower lip, and as loud as I could, shouted out, "Hi, Tim!" Haven't been back there since, but this was around 12 years ago. I'm willing to bet he's still just the assistant manager there. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.